Chapter 206. Shui Bao shouted too. It wasn't that she admired Yang Jie, but Yang Jie's entrance was indeed eye-catching and dashing. Because the seats here were allocated according to their ranking, Yang Jie was actually going to sit next to Lin Jin, which was seat number 1. He landed here too, dressed in white. He stood with his hands behind his back, attracting everyone's attention. White peacock transform. Yang Jie said coolly. The white peacock reverted to its normal size and landed in front, looking incredibly arrogant. However, when the white peacock noticed the snoring Xiaohua, it froze as if it was facing a formidable enemy. Yang Jie didn't notice this as he basked in everyone's admiring gazes. He loved this feeling of being the center of attention, an elite among elites. As for Lin Jin, he deliberately ignored him, treating him like air. Lin Jin couldn't be bothered with him either. Not only was this guy dressed in brand new clothes, but his hair was also neatly combed. Also, his face had been washed clean, but Lin Jin wondered if he had put on some powder. Yang Jie's appearance this time shocked everyone. A rank 4 pet beast was enough to stand proudly among the crowd. Next, the mentors entered. Unlike Yang Jie, most of the mentors walked in on foot. If one paid attention, they would notice one thing. Since the mentor seats were higher up, they had to walk past Lin Jin and Yang Jie. Each mentor would greet their disciple, either by nodding or waving at them. The mentors at the front were all focused on Yang Jie, all of them beaming. Some even went up to him to chat and encourage him. The other disciples obviously couldn't be bothered with them. This made Yang Jie even more pleased. It was as if he was the center of the entire venue. Judging from the current situation, that was indeed the case. The other disciples all had looks of envy on their faces. However, they could only be envious of such matters. Yang Jie's strength was there for all to see, and all this glory was what he deserved. However, when the mentors who came later entered, the atmosphere changed. First came Mr. E. He was one of the more refined mentors, and his strength could be ranked in the top 3. However, he had deliberately shown weakness to Luo Beihe, so he was nominally the 4th mentor. As he passed by, he smiled and chatted with Shui Bao before nodding at Yang Jie. Finally, he approached Lin Jin and said, Lin Jin, I'm looking forward to this tournament. Do your best. It was obvious that Mr. E thought highly of Lin Jin. This caused Yang Jie to frown immediately. He was extremely displeased. However, Yang Jie couldn't say anything. After all, it was their freedom to look up to others. Next was Luo Beihe. She patted Shui Bao's head and said, This time, do what you can. Shui Bao nodded obediently. Then, Luo Beihe walked up to Lin Jin. Ignoring Yang Jie, she said to Lin Jin, Your modified fire spirit possession is amazing. I look forward to seeing you perform it. With that, he left. Although Luo Beihe was rather cold to Lin Jin, at least she spoke to him. She completely ignored Yang Jie. Yang Jie's expression turned ugly. However, Luo Beihe had always had a cold personality, so it was not strange for her to do this. Huang Fuming came up. The elderly man said to Lu Yunhe, From now on, learn more from appraiser Lin. Don't slack off in your cultivation. This was a reprimand. Frightened, Lu Yunhe got up and nodded. Then, ignoring Yang Jie, Huang Fuming turned to Lin Jin and said politely, Appraiser Lin, you're good friends with Yunhe. Please give him some pointers in the future. It was very polite. Lin Jin could tell that Huang Fuming was thanking him for helping Lu Yunhe evolve his pet beast. Although Lu Yunhe had kept his Lu Ba's evolution a secret, Huang Fuming was his teacher, so he must have told Lin Jin about it. Lin Jin got up and returned the salute. Don't worry, Mr. Huang Fu. Huang Fuming nodded and walked up. Yang Jie was gritting his teeth. He couldn't understand what was so special about Lin Jin. Why did the mentors hold him in such high regard? Yet, they were ignoring him. A bunch of useless people. Yang Jie, will surely surpass all of you in the future, Yang Jie thought. At this time, he saw Yi Yuzhou come up, and with him, there was another distinguished guest. Lu Bin. For the past few days, Lu Bin had been waiting for Lin Jin in Maple City. Now that the latter had finally returned, he knew that Lin Jin was going to participate in the Disciples Tournament, so he came over to take a look. Others might not know Lu Bin's identity, but Yang Jie did. He immediately got up and went over to greet him. "Teacher, Uncle Lu." Yang Jie was delighted. Compared to this Uncle Lu, those mentors were nothing. Even if Yang Jie now had a rank 4 pet beast, he would still have to rely on Lu Bin for certain matters in the future. After all, Yi Yuzhou's roots were in Maple City. If Yang Jie wanted to make a name for himself in Jade Dragon City in the future, Lu Bin would be able to help him a lot. Hence, Yang Jie's attitude was respectful. "Yang Jie, just do your best this time," Yi Yuzhou suddenly said. He no longer treated Yang Jie the same way he did before. It couldn't be helped. Now that Yang Jie's wings had hardened, it was fine if he didn't mention the fortuitous encounter, since it was a secret after all. However, it was inappropriate for him to only tell Lin Fan about a pet beast's evolution after the fact. Did Yang Jie still see Lin Jin as his teacher? Yi Yuzhou was more upset than anything else. Moreover, his other disciple, Chun Chung, had made a fool of himself a few days ago, so Yi Yuzhou was in a bad mood. At the sight of Lin Jin, Yi Yuzhou smiled. Now that he knew Lin Jin was Curator's disciple, he had to be more polite. Yi Yuzhou also suspected that Curator might be hiding among the crowd to watch the disciples' tournament. He smiled at Lin Jin. Just then, Lu Bin came over and said, "Appraiser Lin, I've been waiting for you for several days. I know you're busy because of the disciples' tournament, but after the tournament, you have to come with me to the royal city no matter what." At this, everyone was dumbfounded. Those who didn't know Lu Bin didn't feel anything, but those who did were flabbergasted. Yi Yuzhou blinked and asked, "Senior Lu, you two know each other?" Lu Bin nodded and said nothing else. Yi Yuzhou mused. As expected of Curator's disciple, this Lin Jin is amazing. Yang Jie's heart skipped a beat, and his expression darkened. The way Lu Bin spoke to Lin Jin didn't sound condescending at all. It sounded as if Lu Bin had invited Lin Jin to the royal capital, and Lin Jin had rejected him. What was going on? Even Lu Bin wasn't this polite when he spoke to his teacher. Lin Jin didn't expect Lu Bin to be here too. What's more, he was acquainted with Yi Yuzhou and seemed to be his fellow disciple. Lin Jin had promised Lu Bin, and he also wanted to go to the royal city to solve the problem of that cross-dressing woman. Hence, Lin Jin nodded. "After the tournament is over, I'll come with you after I've settled things here." Lu Bin was a maverick by nature. Upon hearing Lin Jin's agreement, he immediately said, "That's a promise. I'll wait for you." Just then, a group of people came in from the entrance. Then, the crowd clustered around one person as they walked in. Many people recognized this person as an important figure in Maple City. "It's City Lord Bai. City Lord Bai is here too." This person was none other than Maple City City Lord Bai Zhenkong. Chapter 207. Bai Zhenkong hadn't been able to eat or sleep well for the past few days. The reason was simple. Snake Country was the culprit. The threat of a national war was no laughing matter. If a war really broke out, as the city lord, he wouldn't be able to walk away unscathed. Bai Zhenkong obviously cared about his own fate. Bai Zhenkong immediately reported the situation to Jade Dragon City and waited for a response. However, he heard that Yi Yuzhou had also written a letter to the city. As for the contents of the letter, Bai Zhenkong had no idea. He didn't want to come today, but after hearing from Zhuo Wentong that Lu Bin, the royal family's guardian, would be here, Bai Zhenkong decided to come after some thought. Of course, he knew who Lu Bin was. The man had considerable status and power in the Jade Dragon Kingdom. He used to be a general and had made many contributions to the country. Moreover, the Lu family was famous, so there were many benefits to befriending Lu Bin. At the sight of Lu Bin, Bai Zhenkong walked over with Zhuo Wentong by his side. "General Lu, why didn't you inform me that you were coming to Maple City? If I hadn't heard from Wentong, I wouldn't have known that you were coming." Bai Zhenkong didn't put on any airs. Besides, he didn't have any airs to put on in front of Lu Bin. "City Lord Bai, I came here for a private matter, so I didn't want to disturb you," Lu Bin replied politely. Just then, Zhuo Wentong noticed Xiao Hua, who was sleeping on the ground. Stunned, he took a closer look and was immediately shocked. A few days ago at Mount Zoraku, He had noticed that the rank 4 fire wolf controlled by the mysterious man looked familiar, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Now that he saw Lin Jin's pet beast, he immediately recognized it. It was mainly because Xiaohua's fur color was unique among fire wolves. After a perfect evolution, Xiaohua's fur color was now unique. Each strand of fur seemed to be condensed from flames, so it wasn't surprising that Bai Zhenkong could recognize it. Zhuo Wentong didn't dare to delay and immediately informed Bai Zhenkong of his discovery. The latter had been frustrated over this matter for the past few days. When he heard of Zhuo Wentong's discovery, his brows straightened and he glared at the fire wolf sternly. "Whose pet beast is this?" Bai Zhenkong asked. Hearing this, Yi Yuzhou knew that the situation was not good. Although Yi Yuzhou had already written a letter to Jade Dragon City's guardian explaining the situation and vouching for him, he initially wanted to delay the matter for a few days until Curator could resolve it. But now that Zhuo Wentong had recognized the fire wolf, Bai Zhenkong would probably make things difficult for him in public. Most importantly, Yi Yuzhou was afraid that the Curator would be present as well. If Bai Zhenkong targeted the Curator's disciple and angered the Curator, he would be in big trouble. By now, Bai Zhenkong already knew who the fire wolf's owner was. He immediately glared at Lin Jin with hostility. Yi Yuzhou hurried forward. Bai Zhenkong had long been dissatisfied with Yi Yuzhou. He said in displeasure, "Mr. Yi, you've been obstructing us in every possible way. The villain who harbored demonic beasts and murdered the son of the Snake Country State Preceptor is still at large. Now that we found a clue, I'll definitely report you to the National Guard if you continue to obstruct us." Even so, Yi Yuzhou did not back down. "If City Lord Bai wants to complain, then go ahead. I will bear all the consequences." He was actually so unyielding. Bai Zhenkong was enraged. Lu Bin could tell that Bai Zhenkong was going to deal with Lin Jin, so he said, "Appraiser Lin will be visiting the royal family soon. City Lord Bai, what are you planning to do to our royal guest?" At Lu Bin's words, Bai Zhenkong's heart skipped a beat, and he looked shocked. He hadn't misheard. Lu Bin had said royal guest. Zhuo Wentong was startled as well. He glanced at Yi Yuzhou and Lin Jin, then at Lu Bin before taking a step back, not daring to say another word. The current situation was no longer something a lowly steward of the City Lord Manor, like him, could say a word. He had only discovered the fire wolf and reported it to the City Lord. Who knew things would turn out this way? If he had known, he would have pretended not to notice. At the same time, Zhuo Wentong was horrified, wondering just who Lin Jin was. He was clearly involved in a huge crime, but Yi Yuzhou and Lu Bin were protecting him like this. Yi Yuzhou was fine, but not even City Lord Bai would dare to offend Lu Bin. Sure enough, Bai Zhenkong's expression changed several times before he finally suppressed his impulse and said, "General Lu, you might not know about this yet. Let me explain it to you so you could be the judge." Bai Zhenkong explained the situation in a few words. Lu Bin's expression changed as he stared at Lin Jin in shock. Monster? The son of Snake Country's state preceptor had died tragically. A national war? This was no small matter. However, after hearing Bai Zhenkong's side of the story, Lu Bin wouldn't change his mind so easily. "City Lord Bai, Junior Yi, let's discuss this in detail later." Lu Bin made a decision. At the very least, he had to understand the situation first. If it was as Bai Zhenkong said, that Snake Country and Jade Dragon Kingdom had started a national war, that would be a huge problem. Yi Yuzhou sighed and said to the mentors who were rushing over, "The disciple tournament will continue." Having said that, when he passed by Lin Jin, Yi Yuzhou whispered, "I will convince them. Just tell Curator not to worry." Lin Jin nodded without saying a word. Bai Zhenkong walked over with a dark expression. Lu Bin didn't say a word. He wanted to hear what Yi Yuzhou had to say first. To him, Yi Yuzhou should be the one who understood the situation the best. Only a small portion of the crowd noticed this little interlude. Since they didn't hear what the three of them were saying, most of them had no idea what was going on. But more importantly, be it Yi Yuzhou, Lu Bin, or Bai Zhenkong, they were all talking about Lin Jin. Yang Jie's expression darkened as he clenched his fist so tightly that his knuckles cracked. He didn't want to wait a moment longer. This disciple tournament was where he and Lin Jin would determine the victor. The disciple tournament had officially begun. As the mentors announced the rules in the Colosseum, the disciples' enthusiasm was immediately piqued. The first beast battle was about to begin. According to the rules, in this year's disciple tournament, only the top 10 disciples would compete. In other words, if a disciple ranked outside the top 10, he or she could only challenge a disciple ranked in the top 10. If he or she won, he or she would replace his or her opponent's rank. And if he or she lost, they would be sent back to where they came from. It was simple and straightforward. The first battle was between the 21st ranked disciple and the 10th ranked disciple. Both disciples brought their pet beasts into the arena and began fighting. However, to Lin Jin, battles of this level weren't worth watching. One was a rank 1 pet beast, while the other was a rank 2. There was no point in comparing them. Sure enough, the 10th ranked disciple defeated his challenger in an instant and defended his rank. The next few battles were lackluster as well. Other than a disciple ranked 17th who defeated the 9th ranked disciple and made a comeback, none of the other challengers succeeded. After all, the mentors' preliminary rankings were very objective. If a disciple didn't hide their strength, the preliminary rankings would basically represent the disciple's strength. Next, someone challenged the 4th ranked disciple, Lu Yunhe. Moreover, the challenger was the 5th ranked disciple, so he was obviously very strong. Lu Yunhe rubbed his palms together and brought Lu Ba into the arena. He probably couldn't wait to show everyone how terrifying his pet beast was after its evolution. Lin Jin secretly manipulated his coiled wire needle to stab the pet beasts who entered the arena. However, as he became more proficient with the coiled wire needle, the pet beasts only felt a slight pain without being noticed. After reading the information in the museum, Lin Jin knew that the disciple who challenged Lu Yunhe was about to return in defeat. His opponent's pet beast was only rank 2 and nothing special at all. Sure enough, in the arena, Lu Ba had his opponent's pet beast sprawled on the ground in just a single exchange. Just like how Xiao Hui defeated Lu Ba back then. A rank 3 pet beast. Many people gasped. After all, everyone knew that Lu Yunhe's pet beast was rank 2. Who knew that it would have a breakthrough this time? Chapter 208. The disciple who challenged Lu Yunhe's side and admitted defeat. He was confident that he could match Lu Yunhe in spellcasting. Since they were both rank 2 pet beasts, he did stand a chance. But against a rank 3, he had no advantage at all. It would be the same no matter how long the fight went. Lu Yunhe was obviously pleased with himself. He didn't come down from the arena and challenge Xue Bauer instead. After all, Xue Bauer was ranked 3rd and the only one Lu Yunhe was confident in challenging. As for 1st and 2nd place, Lu Yunhe knew his limits. Next up, Xue Bauer faced Lu Yunhe. In this battle, Lu Yunhe was obviously relying on his rank 3 pet beast, while Xue Bauer specialized in spells. If Lu Ba wasn't a rank 3 pet beast, Lu Yunhe knew very well that he was no match for Xue Bauer. After all, he had lost to Xue Bauer several times in the past. Lu Ba go. Lu Yunhe didn't use any spells earlier, relying entirely on Lu Ba's strength. But now that he was up against Xue Bauer, he dared not underestimate her despite his pet beast's rank advantage. Hence, this time, he chose to use enhancement spells. Berserk, Thirst for Blood, Wind Blast. The 3 major spells were cast on Lu Ba at once. These 3 spells consumed more than 21 stones of spirit energy, which was almost all of Lu Yunhe's spirit energy reserves. Lu Yunhe's strategy was to end the battle quickly. After being enhanced by the 3 spells, Lu Ba's body grew in size, becoming incomparably ferocious. Winds swirled around his body as he pounced forward. Xue Bauer was not in a hurry. She only used 1 spell, Fire Spirit Possession. This was the improved version that Lin Jin taught her. Even her teacher, Luo Beihe, said that this improved version of Fire Spirit Possession was the strongest enhancement spell for Xue Bauer's pet beast. This Fire Spirit Possession immediately turned Xue Bauer's firewolf into a green flame form. In an instant, the green flames rippled and burned so fiercely that even the audience could feel the scorching heat. Although it was only rank 2, Schweb Bauer's pet beast, was no weaker than Lu Ba at rank 3. The two pet beasts immediately began fighting. Compared to the previous battles, this one was more exciting and the audience cheered. In the arena, both Lu Yunhe and Schweb Bauer wore solemn expressions. It was obvious that they were giving it their all. Lin Jin shook his head. He could roughly see the result. If nothing unexpected happened, Lu Yunhe was going to lose. This fellow was too impulsive. The rank 3 Lu Ba was indeed powerful, but Schweb Bauer's exotic firewolf was not weak either. Although it was one rank lower, with the help of the fire spirit possession, the exotic firewolf could go toe-to-toe with rank 3 Lu Ba for a short period of time. The problem was that Lu Yunhe was so impulsive that he used up all of his spiritual energy at once. Now, Lu Yunhe's remaining spiritual energy was probably less than a stone. On the other hand, Schweb Bauer only used fire spirit possession. Although the fire spirit possession consumed a lot of spiritual energy, at least 17 stones, Schweb Bauer's own spiritual energy should be greater than Lu Yunhe's. Therefore, Schweb Bauer could perform at least one more spell. This spell might not be able to deal with the rank 3 Lu Ba, but against Lu Yunhe, it was a piece of cake. Just as Lin Jin expected, Schweb Bauer invoked a spell in the next instant. Spirit Fire Fist. The fire was borrowed from a pet beast. This was also one of the fire element cultivator's favorite skills to cultivate and perform. With Schweb Bauer's intelligence and high level of comprehension, she performed the skill smoothly. The flames took the shape of a fist and hurled it at Lu Yunhe. The latter was startled. Lu Ba was entangled and couldn't turn around to save his master in time. Lu Yunhe had used up all of his spiritual energy, so he couldn't defend himself. I admit defeat. Lu Yunhe was straightforward. Faced with the scorching fire fist, he had no other choice but to admit defeat. The fire fist stopped and dissipated into thin air. After leaving the arena, the first thing Lu Yunhe said to Lin Jin when he returned was, "I was too careless." Arrogant. Lin Jin corrected him. Lu Yunhe had indeed been too arrogant this time. He thought that Lu Ba would be able to crush Schweb Bauer just because he was rank 3. Little did he expect that Schweb Bauer would use the power of her spell to balance her pet beast. Then, she would use her true form to cast a spell to force Lu Yunhe to admit defeat. In fact, if Lu Yunhe hadn't been too arrogant, he could have won this battle. After all, this was a battle between pet beasts. For Lu Yunhe to lose like this, he was truly a genius. Perhaps he felt embarrassed too. Lu Yunhe lowered his head and returned to his seat. Even Lu Ba looked listless, like a shriveled eggplant. Schweb Bauer didn't come down. Lu Yunhe didn't dare to challenge number 1 and number 2, but she did. In the past, Schweb Bauer would always challenge Yang Jie. There were a few times when Yang Jie was in danger. Everyone in the Friar Association knew that while Schweb Bauer was a simple-minded person, she was definitely one of the top geniuses in cultivation. There was also an interesting fact. All these years, Schweb Bauer had only challenged one person, and that person was Yang Jie. She had once publicly announced that it wasn't because she wanted to challenge Yang Jie, but because she wanted to challenge the number 1 of the Friar Association. There were even people who said that those who were challenged by Schweb Bauer should feel happy because she had acknowledged their strength. Seeing that Schweb Bauer hadn't come down, Yang Jie got up out of habit and prepared to enter the arena. However, just as he stood up and stretched his limbs, he heard Schweb Bauer shout, "Senior Lin, I want to challenge you." Yang Jie was dumbfounded. He didn't know whether to sit or stand. In the end, he gritted his teeth and sat down. He couldn't hide the anger on his face, no matter how hard he tried. Forget Yang Jie. Even Lin Jin found this guy embarrassing. Schweb Bauer didn't even say who she wanted to challenge. So why did he stand up? Lin Jin patted the dozing Xiao Hua to wake him up. Then he strode down the arena. Xiao Hua seemed to have just woken up as he was still a little groggy. Speaking of which, Xiao Hua had been a little impatient during his last perfect evolution. Although it didn't affect the evolution process, it still took a toll on his body. Hence, whenever he had time, Xiao Hua would lie on the ground and sleep to replenish his energy. Once they were in the arena, Lin Jin tossed a bottle of pills to Xue Bauer. Lin Jin had concocted these pills himself. They were spirit energy pills. Xue Bauer suddenly said, "Senior Lin, I have my own pills." Lin Jin waved his hand. "Mine is different." Stunned, Xue Bauer took one out and sniffed it. Her eyes lit up, and she opened her mouth to swallow it. The expression on her face became even more interesting. It was true that the Friar Association had spirit energy pills, but Lin Jin's spirit energy pills were completely different from theirs. The only similarity was their names. In terms of medicinal efficacy, Lin Jin's spirit energy pills were at least several times stronger than the ones here. They were clearly not on the same level. Previously, Xue Bauer had used fire spirit possession to deplete her spirit energy. Now that they were having a second round, she naturally had to replenish her energy. This was also in accordance with the tournament's rules. Of course, even the best spirit energy pills couldn't be consumed continuously. This time, Xue Bauer had recovered at least 80% of her spirit energy. She looked at the pill bottle in her hand. Lin Jin could tell that she wanted it, so he said, "This is for you." Xue Bauer accepted it with a smile. "Senior Lin, let's have a match." As they prepared to fight, Xue Bauer's expression turned serious. It was obvious that she had been waiting to have a proper match with Lin Jin in the arena, even though she knew she was no match for him. Lin Jin smiled. He treated Xue Bauer like a younger sister. Since she wanted to try, he would let her. However, to be honest, Xue Bauer could give it her all while he couldn't. He was afraid that if he went all out, Xue Bauer wouldn't even have the chance to retaliate. Hence, Lin Jin said, "You first." Chapter 209. Xue Bauer's spirit energy was almost fully replenished. She cast Fire Spirit Possession once more and applied it on the exotic fire wolf. Then, the wolf charged at Lin Jin. Lin Jin patted Xiao Hua's head, and the latter rushed forward to engage the exotic fire wolf in battle. However, Xiao Hua didn't change his size, nor did he cast any supernatural powers. He was fighting the exotic fire wolf in his initial form. As for Lin Jin, he didn't cast any enhancement spells. Firstly, it wasn't necessary. Secondly, he still had to deal with Yang Jie later. Even an idiot could tell that Lin Jin wasn't going all out. Meanwhile, Xue Bauer was planning to repeat her old trick by conjuring a flaming fist to ambush Lin Jin. However, Xiao Hua wasn't Lu Ba. The exotic fire wolf couldn't stop Xiao Hua at all. The latter pounced forward and swallowed the flaming fist whole. "I admit defeat." Xue Bauer decisively surrendered at the sight of this. Lin Jin didn't move a single step from the start. He didn't cast any spells either. With Xiao Hua in his initial form, he easily suppressed Xue Bauer. In the arena, Luo Beihe was dumbfounded. She knew very well that if Xue Bauer went all out, even she would have to take her opponent seriously. But Lin Jin seemed like he was just toying with a child. Didn't this mean that even if she were to fight Lin Jin, she wouldn't be his match? Luo Beihe was furious. Mr. E, who was sitting beside her, said, "Mr. Beihe, don't be angry. This is normal. It's a good thing that the new generation excels the old." Luo Beihe rolled her eyes at him. "Didn't you notice that Bauer's firewolf was able to hold off Lu Yuna's rank 3 pet beast? Lu Yuna's firewolf could even hold it back, but now, it's no match for Lu Yuna's pet beast." Mystery was stunned. After giving it some thought, his expression changed. That's right. Bauer's fire spirit possession is most compatible with the fire wolf. Under such circumstances, it's on par with a rank 3 pet beast. But it can't do anything to Lin Jin's pet beast. Could it be? Luo Beihe gave him a "you're not stupid" look. Just watch. Lin Jin will definitely challenge Yang Jie next. To be honest, I didn't look forward to it at first, but now I really want to watch this duel. The duel Luo Beihe was looking forward to didn't happen in the next match. Because just as Lin Jin was about to challenge Yang Jie, a disciple ranked number 6 challenged him instead. Lin Jin had no idea what this person was thinking, but since he was here, he had to accept the challenge according to the rules. However, while Lin Jin had the time to spar with Xue Bauer, he couldn't be bothered to waste his time on someone else. That person cast 2 enhancement spells, and urged his pet beast to pounce on Lin Jin. Lin Jin couldn't even be bothered to let Xiao Hua fight him, so he extended his palm and cast intermediate pet beast deterrence. In an instant, the power of the 5 elements surged out, and the other party's tamed beast collapsed to the ground 3 zhang away, trembling in fear. No matter how many spells were used, the pet beast just lay on the ground, not daring to get up. Yi Yuzhou's eyes lit up when he saw this from a private room in the grandstand. Here it comes. It really is the curator's secret art, as expected of the curator's disciple. Earlier, Yi Yuzhou was explaining the situation to Bai Junkong and Lu Bin. At first, he hadn't intended to tell Bai Junkong in such detail. After all, he didn't dare reveal too much about the curator, but now he had no choice but to tell Bai Junkong and Lu Bin about the curator. Their reactions were completely different. Bai Junkong looked incredulous. Mysterious space, the curator, beast deterrence, invincible aura? Are you kidding me? Yi Yuzhou? Do you think I, Bai Junkong, am a 3-year-old? How could you spout such nonsense? Yi Yuzhou was enraged. Bai Junkong, believe it or not, the curator is the strongest expert I've ever met. Have you heard of the Lingnan deities? Bai Junkong was stunned. At his age, he obviously knew of the Lingnan deities. At least 50 years ago, the Lingnan deities were renowned throughout southern continent. So what if I know? Bai Junkong asked. Now, Madame Ghostchild, whose name strikes terror in the hearts of many kingdoms on southern continent, is one of the Lingnan 5 deities. I've fought Madame Ghostchild before, and frankly speaking, I'm a level higher in spells than her. But when it comes to pet beasts, my soaring cloud flood dragon is no match for her. In a real fight, I can severely injure her, but in the end, I would most likely be killed by her. But this Madame Ghostchild doesn't even dare to make a move in front of Curator. Her pet beast wouldn't even dare to let out a fart. Yi Yuzhou sneered coldly. If you know, then you should know how powerful the 5 deities were back then. Bai Junkong didn't say a word. He was already dumbstruck. Even Lu Bin, who had been listening quietly, wore a solemn expression. If it wasn't Yi Yuzhou who said this, he would definitely think it was nonsense. But if it was Yi Yuzhou, then it was highly believable. Yi Yuzhou called Zhua Wenhong over and said, "Steward Zhua, you were there that day too. Tell me, did the grassy continent natives gain anything from the curator?" Zhua Wentong's scalp prickled, but he still told the truth, not daring to lie or hide anything. Then Lu Bin caught the key point. You're saying that the rank 4 firewolf you saw that day was Lin Jin's pet beast? He turned to Zhua Wentong, and the latter nodded. Yi Yuzhou said, "That's normal because Lin Jin is the curator's disciple. Isn't it normal for the curator to help his disciples' pet beast evolve?" Normal? That was a rank for they were talking about. No one in the entire Jade Dragon Kingdom could achieve that easily, right? Of course, based on what Yi Yuzhou said, it wasn't surprising that the curator had that ability. After all, he could even provide a rank 4 pet beast with a method to evolve a rank 5 pet beast. This was beyond the Jade Dragon Kingdom's capabilities. Only a premium country could have such an expert. After Yi Yuzhou was done, he added, "If I were to choose, offending a mere snake country is nothing compared to offending the curator. Moreover, the curator has said that he will deal with snake country. Do you think an expert who can easily evolve a pet beast to rank 4 can't handle snake country?" Bai Junkong's throat twitched as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out. If what Yi Yuzhou said was true, they couldn't afford to offend this curator. Not only that, but they had to try their best to rope him in. It was just that he couldn't be sure if the truth of this matter was high or not. "General Lu, what do you think?" Bai Junkong asked. Lu Bin's answer was straightforward. "I believe him." Having said that, Lu Bin thought for a moment before saying, "I've suspected that Lin Jin has an expert backing him up. Now, it seems like it's just as I expected. It's no wonder he could produce the 9-water floating cloud pills prescription." With that, Bai Junkong couldn't say anything else because he too believed it. Just then, Lin Jin used his aura to easily defeat the 6th-rank challenger. The trio then shifted their attention back to the Colosseum. Lin Jin's victory was what many disciples expected, but they didn't expect Lin Jin to win so easily. Xue Bauer, in particular, widened her eyes. She knew better than anyone else that Lin Jin had been going easy on her earlier. Otherwise, she would have ended up like the previous challenger, unable to control her pet beast and forced to concede defeat. "I want to challenge Yang Jie," Lin Jin declared after winning this match. He didn't want to waste any more time, so he should get down to business. Defeating Yang Jie and obtaining first place in the Disciple Tournament was Lin Jin's goal. No one could stop him from doing so. Chapter 210. Yang Jie seemed to have been waiting for this moment. He got up, cast a spell, and leaped down. The white peacock followed him and landed in the arena. The disciples were all excited. The most exciting battle was about to begin. With someone taking the lead, many began chanting Yang Jie's name. Soon, the entire arena was filled with shouts of Yang Jie. There were obviously more disciples supporting Yang Jie. The reason was simple. Yang Jie's white peacock was already rank 4. To the disciples, a rank 4 pet beast was the symbol of an intermediate country. It was a guardian beast. Just this fact alone put Yang Jie in an invincible position. Yang Jie wasted no time and urged his pet beast. The white peacock grew larger and its aura soared, displaying the might of a rank 4 pet beast. "Lin Jin, your glory is only temporary. You're not qualified to compete with me." Yang Jie cast a spell and hovered in the air. His robes fluttered as if he was an immortal descending to the mortal realm. Lin Jin chuckled and extended a hand to exert deterrence on the white peacock. The opponent was a rank 4 pet beast, so it should be affected by the deterrence of an intermediate pet beast. Sure enough, the moment Lin Jin extended his hand, the white peacock fell from the sky as if it was struck by an invisible palm. This scene frightened everyone. The scene instantly fell silent, so quiet that it was frightening. Inside the private room, Yi Yuzhou sighed. Yang Jie is too arrogant. It's good for him to experience some setbacks. Yang Jie couldn't believe what he was seeing. His rank 4 pet beast, the white peacock, had just unleashed its might when Lin Jin subdued it. At that moment, Yang Jie felt like he was dreaming. His rank 4 pet beast, the white peacock, was being suppressed. How is this possible? But this was reality. With his pet beast suppressed, how was he supposed to fight? Someone came to a realization and mumbled, "Senior Yang Jie was defeated just like that? That can't be. That's Senior Yang Jie we're talking about. There must be a mistake somewhere." The crowd broke into a flurry of discussion. Yang Jie's eyes widened, and he immediately invoked a spell. Magic Cry. Yang Jie's spells were indeed exquisite. As expected of a talented disciple taught by a spellcaster like Yi Yuzhou. Under such circumstances, he actually chose the most suitable spell to counterattack. The next instant, the white peacock let out a cry. The sound drilled into his ears, stinging him and making him dizzy. Lin Jin's head went dizzy, and he stopped exerting his aura. On the other side, the white peacock was finally able to raise its head and act like a bird. This white peacock was just like Yang Jie. It was extremely arrogant. Now that it had just broken free from the pressure, it immediately launched a counterattack. He opened his mouth, and a white wind blade swept out. Yang Jie breathed a sigh of relief. Although he had no idea what method Lin Jin used to suppress his pet beast, it was clear that Lin Jin had almost lost. Now, all Lin Jin had to do was borrow the strength of his rank 4 pet beast to launch an all-out attack, and Lin Jin would have no chance of winning. From Yang Jie's point of view, Lin Jin's pet beast would never be able to withstand these 100 wind blades. There was a high chance that it would be killed instantly. The death of a pet beast in a fight was the greatest blow to the competition. However, in the next moment, Xiaohua's body suddenly expanded, and flames surged out from his body. Then, Xiaohua swept his tail, and a fiery whirlwind swept out, facing the hundreds of wind blades. The two collided and canceled each other out. However, what was even more shocking was not this, but the aura that Xiaohua was emitting right now. It was no weaker than the white-plumed sparrow. In fact, it was even stronger. Anyone who wasn't blind could tell what this meant. Rank 4. It's a rank 4 pet beast as well. The crowd gasped. This was too shocking. In the Jade Dragon Kingdom, rank 4 pet beasts were extremely rare. They were all at the level of the nation's guardian beasts. Before this, Yi Yujo was the only one with a rank 4 pet beast in Maple City. It was precisely because of this that Yang Jie's pet beast advancement to rank 4 caused such a commotion. But who could have expected Lin Jin's pet beast to evolve to rank 4 as well? Since when was it so easy to evolve to rank 4? At the mentors table, the many mentors were dumbstruck. Luo Beihe, Mr. E, and even Huang Fuming reacted the same way. After the initial shock, they smiled bitterly. As mentors of the Friar Association, at least in terms of pet beasts, they were already lagging behind others. This disciple tournament is going to be interesting to watch. That's right, a battle between rank 4 pet beasts is rare. Some mentors were more curious about what method Lin Jin had used to suppress Yang Jie's rank 4 pet beast. In the arena, Lin Jin noticed Xiao Hua's overflowing fighting spirit. Ever since Xiao Hua evolved to rank 4, he hadn't experienced a real battle, and he was probably feeling suffocated. Now that he had a chance, why not fulfill his wish? Moreover, it was a little strenuous to cast beast deterrence, so he might as well let Xiao Hua train his pet beast. Go, Lin Jin said from behind, and Xiao Hua immediately initiated an attack. Among everyone present, Yang Jie was the one who was most shocked by Lin Jin's pet beast advancement to rank 4. He knew better than anyone how difficult it was for a pet beast to reach rank 4. He had relied on years of accumulation and that ancient immortal pill to barely evolve his white peacock. At first, he thought he could rely on his rank 4 pet beast advantage to crush his opponent and teach Lin Jin a lesson to prove that he was the #1 disciple. To think that Lin Jin's pet beast had evolved as well. However, Yang Jie quickly adjusted his mindset. So what if Lin Jin had evolved to rank 4? Since both pet beasts were rank 4, the only thing that mattered was the caster's spells. At this thought, Yang Jie decided to use his ultimate move. He couldn't be bothered to use other minor spells. Against a strong opponent like Lin Jin, he had to go all out. Unknowingly, the opponent he once thought to be insignificant had become his strongest opponent. Blood Contract, Beast Strength. Once Yang Jie's spell was complete, the white peacock seemed to have sensed something. It raised its head to the sky and let out a long cry. Then, a stream of essence energy shot out from its beak and surged into Yang Jie's body like a swarm of bees returning to their nest. Upon seeing this, Yi Yujo's expression changed. Yang Jie. I didn't expect Yang Jie to use this move. Looks like he's planning to end this quickly. Having said that, he sighed and mumbled to himself, Yang Jie, you're my disciple, so of course I want you to win. But as the curator's disciple, he must have some tricks up his sleeves. I'm afraid you won't get what you want. Now that I think about it, I've neglected you in the past, and that's why you've developed such an arrogant personality. I hope you'll learn from your mistakes today. Lu Bin and Bai Junkong were flabbergasted by his words. Yang Jie's aura was now at its peak. With this level of strength, he could already be ranked among the top experts in Jade Dragon Kingdom. Yet, Yi Yujo still didn't seem to be Yang Jie's match. But that made sense. According to Yi Yujo's description of the mysterious curator, if the curator was truly that powerful, his disciple should be even stronger. Curious, Lu Bin and Bai Junkong watched intently. In the arena, Yang Jie's body glowed with a white light as a whirlwind swirled around him. He levitated 20 feet into the air, and a pair of wings appeared on his back, making him look like a birdman. The crowd was dumbfounded. Those who were knowledgeable immediately recognized that this was an advanced blood contract spell. It allowed the user to enhance their pet beast strength for a short period of time, just like the ancient cultivators, possessing unfathomable powers. They could summon wind and rain, summon fire and lightning. Once the pet beast and the blood contract reached a higher level, moving mountains and moving seas wouldn't be an issue. However, Yang Jie was only at the beginner level of this skill. Even so, his aura wasn't something an average cultivator could handle. Everyone could tell that Yang Jie was planning to use his pet beast to restrain his opponent's pet beast while he himself fought. Under such circumstances, Lin Jin was no match for Yang Jie. Unless Lin Jin also knew beast strength. Of course, Lin Jin didn't. Forget high-end spells like this. Other than the spirit energy finger, Lin Jin didn't know any other offensive spells in a physical duel. Yang Jie flapped his wings and directly cast a wind blade technique. Several wind blades immediately cut through the air and flew toward Lin Jin. At this, Lin Jin quickly rolled on the ground, barely dodging the attack. The spot where he was just standing was now slashed open with gravel flying everywhere. Outside the arena, the mentors in charge of the competition's safety were drenched in cold sweat. They were in charge of maintaining order as well as ensuring their disciples' safety during crucial moments. However, Yang Jie's wind blades were so fast that they couldn't react in time. They might not be able to save Lin Jin in time. The strength of the two combatants in the arena had clearly surpassed the mentor's level. If an accident were to happen, they wouldn't be able to help at all. They were afraid too. If anything went wrong, someone might die. Chapter 211. The mentors immediately reported the situation to their superiors and soon, an order was issued. The tournament continued. With this, the mentors had nothing more to say. They could only say that the two on stage were on their own. If they really ended up with broken limbs, they would be asking for it. Lin Jin evaded the wind blades and flicked his finger, sending the coiled wire needle flying toward Yang Jie. However, the latter was currently surrounded by a gust of wind, so the coiled wire needle couldn't get close to him. Yang Jie had clearly learned his lesson from his first battle with Lin Jin. Perhaps it was Yi Yuzhou's idea as well. Since Lin Jin had an elusive attack, Yang Jie should prepare his defense from the start so that nothing could get past him. That way, no matter how cunning his opponent was, it would be useless. Another few wind blades came slashing at Lin Jin. Lin Jin could only dodge. If this went on, he would be in trouble. Since you've got a spell on you, I'll give you a spell negation. Lin Jin didn't know any advanced spells like Yang Jie's that allowed him to grow wings and fly like the white peacock. There were only two spells that Lin Jin had been researching. One was Fire Spirit Possession. The other was Spell Negation. Lin Jin had put in a lot of effort into this spell negation. Not only did he discuss it with Shui Bauer and learn a lot from her, but he had also improved it himself. At this moment, he narrowly avoided Yang Jie's second wave of attacks and directly pointed at Yang Jie. Spell Negation. The spell was immediately cast, and an invisible force blasted Yang Jie's body. In an instant, it was like a heavy hammer that smashed Yang Jie's enchantment into smithereens. The gust of wind around Yang Jie dissipated and the wings on his back were peeled off. Yang Jie fell from the sky and landed heavily on the ground. What elegant demeanor! What dashing elegance! At this moment, all of that had vanished into thin air with this fall. This fall was really bad, and his forehead was bleeding. However, Yang Jie had a strong physique, so he immediately leaped up from the ground with a vicious glint in his eyes. This was too embarrassing. It was as if a person had been stripped naked in public. At the same time, Yang Jie was astounded. Of course, he knew about spell negation, but under normal circumstances, it wasn't easy to cast a regular spell negation. Moreover, Yang Jie's immunity to spell negation was incredibly strong, so how did Lin Jin succeed in one strike? But that was the truth. Yang Jie didn't think too much about it. He didn't dare to think too much. After leaping up, he immediately pointed at the air and used the third form of the finger chi sword art. Rainbow like a sword. On the other side, Lin Jin wasn't slow either. The next instant, Lin Jin was forced to take 3 steps back before collapsing to the ground. Yang Jie was also stabbed by the coiled wire needle. At that moment, Yang Jie felt a pain in his chest, followed by his entire body going numb. He couldn't move. Yang Jie was horrified, but he forced a laugh out loud. Although he couldn't move, he was still standing. However, Lin Jin had fallen to the ground. Yang Jie had absolute confidence in his finger chi sword art's third style. After suffering such a blow, even if he didn't die, he would be heavily injured. Lin Jin, you deserve it, Yang Jie said through gritted teeth. He tried to forcefully circulate the spirit energy in his body to dispel the numbness, but things didn't turn out as he wished. Not only did he fail to dispel the strange numbness, but also made his expression change, and he vomited a mouthful of blood. He was injured, and it wasn't a light injury either. Just then, Lin Jin got up from where he was lying on the ground. Yang Jie's eyes widened as if he had just seen a ghost. Lin Jin grimaced in pain before taking out a breastplate from his clothes. He had spent a huge sum of money to order this from a smithy yesterday, using the best metal. Lin Jin was well aware of his own shortcomings. His pet beast was strong, and his pulse-seeking technique was impressive. That was it. These are the only two things he was good at. Lin Jin recalled how Yang Jie managed to injure him with a single finger attack, so he had to be careful this time. Just like how Yang Jie used the wind around him to defend against Lin Jin's coiled wire needle. Lin Jin didn't know any advanced spells, so he custom-made a sturdy breastplate. Before he went on stage, he stuffed it under his shirt, and sure enough, it came in handy. At this moment, he looked at the heart protection mirror, which had already been dented by the tyrannical force. It had almost penetrated through. However, Yang Jie's finger chi sword incantation's third form was too far away, and he hadn't mastered this technique enough. If Yi Yuzhou had used it, forget one heart protection mirror, even 3 or 5 heart protection mirrors wouldn't have been able to withstand it. As for Lin Jin, he only suffered minor injuries. He was definitely in a much better state compared to Yang Jie. The spectating disciples were also dumbfounded. A few instructors also looked at each other. It seemed that the rules didn't say that they weren't allowed to wear the heart protection mirror for defense. Hence, it was within the rules. Lin Jin, you're despicable and shameless. Yang Jie was about to lose his mind. Restrained by the coiled wire needle, he couldn't move at all. In addition, he was already in a sorry state after falling from the sky. Now, he looked even more pitiful. Lin Jin patted his shirt and glanced at Yang Jie. You're not convinced? Yang Jie scolded. Lin Jin, if you're that good, let's have a real fight. What's the point of using such despicable tricks to subdue me? Lin Jin couldn't be bothered with him. Yang Jie's earlier jab was extremely powerful. If it weren't for the breastplate, Lin Jin would have been gravely injured even if he survived. Lin Jin didn't want to waste any more time talking and simply threw a punch. It landed squarely on Yang Jie's nose. Yang Jie tasted the sweetness, the bitterness, and the spiciness of life as his handsome nose started bleeding. Lin Jin didn't stop there. He pinned Yang Jie down and began a flurry of punches, leaving Yang Jie with a bloody nose and a swollen face. However, Yang Jie was a stubborn man. Even after being beaten up so badly, he refused to admit defeat. If he didn't admit defeat, the match would have to continue. Lin Jin was tired. He stopped controlling the coiled wire needle. Otherwise, all he had to do was follow Yang Jie's veins and enter his heart. With a twist, he could turn Yang Jie into a corpse. However, that wasn't Lin Jin's goal. It wasn't necessary. Moreover, he had to take Old Ye's pride into consideration. Old Ye had taken a firm stand against Snake Country, and Lin Jin had to encourage him. It wouldn't be appropriate to kill Old Ye's disciple in public. Still not going to admit defeat? Lin Jin's hand was hurting, so he didn't want to continue. Yang Jie's eyelids were so swollen that only a slit could be seen, but he still didn't make a sound. Lin Jin understood now. Yang Jie was probably thinking of using his pet beast to make a comeback. He thought that as long as the white peacock could defeat Lin Jin's pet beast, he would still have a chance. Theoretically, that was true, but in reality, the white peacock couldn't possibly win. Lin Jin's beast appraisal skills were now incredible. Even without the Museum of Deadly Beasts, he could appraise most beasts. Take the white peacock, for example. Despite its imposing aura and the fact that it was undoubtedly a rank 4, its foundation was unstable. Its eyes were full of vigor, and they didn't disperse, indicating that it was being supported by the medicinal effects. Other than that, it was obvious from the color of its fur and the faint scent of medicine that it was giving off. Usually, when Xiaohua evolved and consumed the 5 elemental fire pill, the medicinal effect should have completely assimilated into the pet beast's body, so it couldn't be felt. However, Yang Jie's pet beast was different. Lin Jin speculated that it was highly possible that the pill Yang Jie consumed was of an extremely high grade. In other words, the medicinal effects were extremely potent. However, a pill's effectiveness wasn't the only thing that mattered. It had to be tailored to the condition. It had to have compatible attributes. Otherwise, carelessly consuming a pill would only lead to disaster. Chapter 2:12. Although Yang Jie's white peacock had reached rank 4, its foundation was still weak. If he wasn't mistaken, this was all because of the powerful pill it consumed that forcefully enhanced its pet beast's strength. Since Yang Jie didn't know much about medicine, he didn't use the corresponding cultivation method to help the white peacock neutralize the potent medicinal effect. If things went as expected, once the medicinal effect dissipated, the white peacock would be in deep trouble. At the very least, it would fall in rank, its meridians and internal organs would be damaged, and it would no longer be able to evolve. At worst, it would die from blood loss. Now that the white peacock and Xiao Hua were fighting, the burden would increase and speed up the process. Of course, if the Museum of Deadly Beasts recorded it, there should be a cure and cure method. But why would Lin Jin help Yang Jie? He was already being considerate of Yi Yuzhou by not killing the white peacock right now. Lin Jin wasn't a masochist to help the white peacock assimilate the medicinal effect. Hence, Lin Jin said to Yang Jie, "Yang Jie, let's make a bet. Believe it or not, your white peacock will be defeated after I count 10 times. It might even die." Anger flashed in Yang Jie's eyes. T. Lin Jin, if you have the guts, let's see who's stronger between our pet beasts. Do you dare? Lin Jin shook his head. Yang Jie was still so stubborn, even in the face of death. All right, since you want to compete, I'll grant you your wish. Having said that, Lin Jin started counting. However, on the 3rd count, the white peacock's vigor had plummeted. On the 7th count, the white peacock let out a blood-curdling shriek before a bloody mist burst out of its body and it collapsed to the ground. This startled everyone. One of the mentors immediately went over to check and made a gesture. The match was over. The result was out. Yang Jie's head was swollen like a pig's as he lay on the ground, unable to move. His pet beast, the white peacock, was also bleeding profusely. The outcome of the match was obvious. Lin Jin wins. The mentor announced the result. Lin Jin recalled Xiao Hua and glanced at the bloodied white peacock before returning to his seat. There were naturally people treating Yang Jie and the white peacock. However, no one was paying attention to Yang Jie anymore. The disciples were all looking at Lin Jin with respect and admiration. He was too strong. Both Lin Jin and his pet beast could easily crush Yang Jie. It was no exaggeration to say that Lin Jin was the undisputed #1 in this disciple tournament. Brother Lin, we're rich. Lu Yunhe was elated. He had bet quite a lot on Lin Jin, so he must have made a killing this time. Yang Jie and the white peacock were taken away for treatment. Obviously, the Friar Association had already arranged for beast appraisers and doctors to treat them. But soon, Yi Yuzhou returned. Lin Jin knew why Yi Yuzhou was here, so he kept quiet. Yi Yuzhou sighed and came over to whisper, "Appraiser Lin, that Yang Jie is my disciple after all. It's good for him to be beaten up. However, his pet beast, the white peacock, is a rare beast. If it were to die just like that, it would be such a waste. It would be a loss to the Jade Dragon Kingdom as well." Lin Jin remained silent. "Appraiser Lin, if you have a way, please lend me a helping hand. Just treat it as a favor to me." Since Yi Yuzhou had said so, it would be inappropriate for Lin Jin to remain indifferent. After all, with Yi Yuzhou's age, experience, and identity, how could Lin Jin remain indifferent when he came to ask for help? "Bring me there." Lin Jin got up. Yi Yuzhou looked around and whispered, "Is the curator here?" Lin Jin frowned. "If you don't trust me, I won't go." Yi Yuzhou clearly wanted the curator to help. But seeing Lin Jin's anger, Yi Yuzhou quickly said, I do. Then I'll have to trouble appraiser Lin to make this trip." By the time the white peacock arrived, the pet beast was already on its last breath. Lin Jin reached out to touch it and read the information in the museum. His previous judgment was correct. This white peacock was indeed born from the effects of a pill. It was inevitable that it would end up in this state. It was only because of this white peacock's strong physique and powerful bloodline that it managed to survive until now. Had it been any other pet beast, it would have died long ago. There were several treatment methods in the museum. Lin Jin skimmed through them briefly and chose the most suitable one. It was also the only one he could use. Please give me some hemolytic flower, dream mushroom grass, and rock cold leaf. Boil them into a medicinal concoction and bring it over. Lin Jin performed acupuncture to stop the white peacock's bleeding. Everyone was stunned, but no one moved. Enraged, Yi Yuzhou cursed. Only then did they hurry off to search for the herbs. At that moment, Bai Zhenkong and Lu Bin came over. However, they didn't approach, but watched from afar. General Liu, why do you think Yang Jie's pet beast ended up like this? Did it fall under some strange spell? Bai Zhenkong didn't know much about medicine, so he couldn't help but make wild guesses. Lu Bin shook his head. It must have eaten some random pill. I'm guessing that the pill must be the reason why this pet beast was able to evolve into rank 4. It's just that the medicinal effect isn't compatible with the pet beast's attribute. I've seen a similar situation in the past where a pill was dug out from some ancient ruin and randomly fed to a pet beast. Although it could improve the pet beast's strength in the short term, the consequences were endless. At this, Bai Zhenkong came to a realization and let out a sigh. He had hoped that Maple City would have another rank 4 pet beast, but it seemed like it was just a dream. However, one thing was for sure. Lin Jin's pet beast was also rank 4. With this, Maple City would have another rank 4 pet beast. Soon, the medicinal ingredients were gathered and brewed into a concoction. Lin Jin pricked the white peacock, and the latter woke up from its coma. He had it drink the concoction, and after a while, the white peacock began vomiting. The thing he spat out carried a strong medicinal smell. It was obviously the remnants of a pill that hadn't been digested. At one glance, Lin Jin could tell that this pill was no ordinary pill. It was a pity that Yang Jie thought he was smart enough to feed it to his pet beast before he could figure out the pill's attributes and effects. In the end, the white peacock couldn't digest the pill's energy at all. In the end, the medicinal effects burst its veins, and it almost died. After spitting out the dregs, the white peacock's condition improved. Lin Jin then used the pulse-seeking technique to force the medicinal effects out of the white peacock's body and repair its damaged veins. Lin Jin only left after dealing with these matters. The white peacock's life wasn't in danger, but it was obvious that it couldn't maintain its rank 4 realm. If not for Lin Jin's help, the white peacock's life would have been in danger. Now, this pet beast could only remain at rank 3, and there was no chance of it evolving. Lin Jin had only intervened because Yi Yuzhou had spoken. As for Yang Jie, after suffering such a crushing defeat, he would probably keep a low profile from now on. As for whether Yang Jie could surpass Lin Jin, anyone with half a brain would know. That was impossible. The champion of this disciple tournament was undoubtedly Lin Jin. And of course, he also received the reward he deserved. The reward wasn't just the elementary dragon blood pill. There was also an intermediate grade spirit stone and a spell that couldn't be found in the spirit library. However, to Lin Jin, nothing was more useful than the elementary dragon blood pill. With the elementary dragon blood pill, Xiaohu would be able to advance further. Otherwise, even with the Museum of Deadly Beasts, Xiaohu would only be able to advance to rank 4. Chapter 213. Back home, Zhaoying, Lu Xiaoyan, Han Dong, and Jia Qian had been waiting for a long time. They obviously knew that Lin Jin had won first place in the disciple tournament, so they came all the way here to celebrate. They even brought along delicious food and wine. But before he could eat or drink, Lu Yunhe and Zhu Qin arrived. Everyone was familiar with each other, so they decided to stay and celebrate together. It was Lin Jin's first time getting drunk. When he woke up, it was already the next day. Han Dong stayed behind to take care of Lin Jin. When Lin Jin woke up, Han Dong told him that the Shi family's patriarch had visited with some congratulatory gifts. Lin Jin was exasperated. This wasn't a wedding, nor was it an examination. It was just a disciples' tournament. Gifting a congratulatory gift was a little too much. However, Lin Jin was aware of the Shi family situation. They had been on the brink of death, but thanks to Lin Jin's prescription, they managed to come back from the brink of death and even turn defeat into victory. Hence, it was only natural for the Shi family to be grateful. Looking at the things that were sent over, they were all valuable items. Just medicinal herbs alone accounted for more than half of them. It could be seen that Shi Wenjun had a knack for choosing gifts. Lin Jin glanced at Han Dong before choosing a few gifts from the pile. He distributed them to Han Dong so that he could give one each to Zhao Ying, Lu Xiaoyun, and Jia Qian. These items were not cheap. If they were to be converted into gold and silver, each of them could be worth several hundred taels. Han Dong didn't dare to accept them. Lin Jin cursed before accepting them obediently. After Han Dong left, Lin Jin was relieved. In the future, he wouldn't go to the Friar Association if he could help it. After all, he only had one goal for joining the Friar Association, the Dragon Blood Pill. Now that the Dragon Blood Pill was in his hands, there was naturally no need for him to go there. Speaking of which, he hadn't been going to the Beast Appraisal Association as of late. He had to focus his attention back on honing his beast appraising skills. This was the right way. Using the Dragon Blood Pill to change Xiao Hua's physique was not urgent. After all, Xiao Hua had just advanced and needed to stabilize it. Other than that, Lin Jin also carefully considered Shang and the others' future. Living in the deep mountains and forests wasn't a long-term solution. It was easy to understand. If a woodcutter were to meet a beautiful woman in the remote mountains, anyone would find it strange. On the contrary, if it was in the city, it would not be so conspicuous. As the saying goes, a great hermit hides in the city. Even Lin Jin was startled by this thought. The idea of raising a group of demonic beasts at home was too exciting. No one would dare to do such a thing, no matter how courageous they were. But that was convenient. Firstly, they didn't have to run around at night. Secondly, as long as they mastered the shape-shifting technique, they wouldn't have to show their faces in public. Even if they did show their faces in public, they would be in human form. As long as they were careful, they wouldn't be exposed. Lin Jin began to seriously consider this whimsical idea of his. It seemed to be courting death, but after careful analysis, it might be safer in the city than in the wilderness. Of course, the prerequisite was that he had to control the risks. For this reason, Lin Jin pondered for a long time before coming to a conclusion. This method was feasible. Even if the little foxes didn't transform, as long as they didn't run around, they wouldn't be discovered. Shang and Xiao Wu could already transform, so they could appear in their human forms. As for the great white ape, he was a problem. Fortunately, Lin Jin had a way to change the color of his fur. As long as he remained small, no one would suspect anything. Of course, he still had to make some preparations. But since Lin Jin had a general plan in mind, he decided to go ahead with it. Lin Jin took Xiao Hua out for a stroll. Meanwhile, in the City Lord Manor, Bai Junkong, Yi Yuzhou, and Lu Bin were waiting for news. Jade Dragon City was taking the potential conflict with Snake Country very seriously. Not only had they mobilized their troops in advance to prevent any mishaps, but they had also sent out scouts to Grassy Continent to gather information. If everything went as expected, they would receive news today. Just as the three of them were getting anxious, someone came to report that the Imperial City's eagles had arrived. Bai Jinkong immediately got up and went over to receive the letter. The letter was delivered by a specialized eagle beast that traveled at lightning speed. From Jade Dragon City to Maple City, it only took 2 hours for the letter to arrive. Bai Jinkong impatiently tore open the letter and was stunned. City Lord Bai, what does the letter say? Yi Yuzhou leaned over. Bai Jinkong glanced at Yi Yuzhou before handing the letter over. After reading it, Yi Yuzhou laughed and passed the letter to Lu Bin. After reading it, Lu Bin exclaimed in surprise, Snake Country has initiated a truce. Even Yi Yuzhou was surprised by this result. He thought that Snake Country would at most refrain from using force. He didn't expect them to initiate a truce. But the problem was, Jade Dragon Kingdom didn't use force at all. Yi Yuzhou only had to think for a moment to figure out the reason. It's Black Crow and Madame Ghost Child. Yujo's eyes lit up. Clearly, this was the only possibility. Black Crow and Madame Ghostchild must have seen the news he posted on the Villainous Paths newspaper. Not only did they see it, but they also responded immediately by heading to Snake Country. Otherwise, why would Snake Country initiate a truce? Yujo was now curious. How did Black Crow and Madame Ghostchild do it? Grassy Continent, Snake Country. State Preceptor Rizero was currently in a terrible predicament. He had already convinced Snake Country's king to declare war against Jade Dragon Kingdom. After all, his son was dead and he had to settle the score. But who would have thought that while they were preparing, several Grim Reapers would suddenly descend upon Snake Country? There were 4 of them in total. However, 3 of them had rank 4 pet beasts and were far stronger than experts of the same rank. Snake Country was also an intermediate country with 8 rank 4 pet beasts. However, 5 of these 8 were used to guard the borders and intimidate neighboring countries. Unless there were special circumstances, they couldn't be called back. In other words, Snake Country could only mobilize 3 rank 4 pet beasts at the moment. In other words, the people who came this time could already go up against Snake Country's current combat power. Of course, Snake Country still had hundreds of rank 3 pet beasts and countless rank 2 pet beasts. With their advantage in numbers, they didn't have to be afraid. But the problem was the enemies this time weren't your average experts. Black Crow, a famous villainous expert from Western Continent. His pet beast is a rank 4 Black Falcon. He once destroyed many small countries and is ranked top 20 among villainous experts. Evil Scholar, a villainous expert from Western Continent. His pet beast is a rank 3 White Cat. Others unknown. Madame Ghostchild, a villainous expert from the Southern Continent. Pet beast unknown, but at least rank 4. She ranks among the top 10 villainous experts. Coffin Man, a villainous expert of the South Continent. Pet beast unknown, rank 4. He once killed the Duke of an intermediate country and was listed as a wanted criminal with a bounty on his head for over 20 years. Any one of them was enough to cause a headache. Yet at this moment, they had all gathered together to cause trouble for Snake Country. The other party occupied a border city of Snake Country, but they didn't plunder or kill anyone. They just refused to leave. Snake Country only had one request, which was for Snake Country to give up on attacking Jade Dragon Kingdom. The king of Snake Country had already agreed to this matter. He really couldn't afford to offend these people. It wasn't that he had never fought them before. Snake Country had previously mobilized 3 rank 4 beasts to suppress them, but they were no match for them. They fought for half a day, and half of the border city was destroyed, but they still couldn't do anything to the other party. Even if they couldn't win, they wouldn't leave. Hence, the king of Snake Country had no choice but to agree to their request. He even sent an envoy to the Jade Dragon Kingdom to negotiate for peace. Aggrieved, but there was nothing he could do. It was mainly because of the lingering fear. If Snake Country could gather all 8 rank 4 pet beasts, they would definitely be able to chase these villainous experts away. But what about in the future? They were all alone, so they could go wherever they wanted. They could just change locations after killing someone. An intermediate country like Snake Country couldn't possibly move, so they couldn't always be on guard. Moreover, the Jade Dragon Kingdom was an intermediate country. It was said that they had at least 7 rank 4 guardian beasts. If these villainous experts were to join forces with the Jade Dragon Kingdom, the Jade Dragon Kingdom could easily dispatch 3 to 4 rank 4 beasts, and Snake Country would be in grave danger. For the sake of the bigger picture, the king of Snake Country had to do this. But Rizero felt aggrieved. After all, it was his son who died this time, and it was the son he had high hopes for. Rizero couldn't figure out why villainous experts from the faraway West Continent and South Continent would come all the way here to support an ordinary Jade Dragon Kingdom. He sent someone to investigate, and a villainous newspaper was presented to him. Curator. Rizero gritted his teeth at the sight of the name. Although he didn't know who this curator was, he was the one who recruited villainous experts like Black Crow and Madame Ghostchild to fight against Snake Country. Rizero didn't really intend to start a war with Jade Dragon Kingdom. He only wanted to use the name of a national war to force J-Dragon Kingdom to hand over his son's murderer. Rizero suddenly thought of someone. That mysterious man wearing a tree bark mask in Mount Zoraku. Could he be the curator? Curator, no matter who you are, I, Rizero, will never let you off. Rizero was determined to seek revenge. Chapter 214. In a nearly destroyed city on the border of Snake Country, Evil Scholar hugged his white cat and said to the others, "The king of Snake Country is smart enough to send an envoy to Jade Dragon City to negotiate for peace. With this, we can consider our mission accomplished." Opposite them, Black Crow was eating on a chair. Madame Ghostchild was holding a swaddle and playing with her baby with a rattle drum. As for Coffin Man, he was sleeping with his coffin on his back. "Let's go then." Black Crow tossed the drumstick in his hand onto the table and wiped his mouth. Beside him, the Black Falcon was also quite full. It had contributed a lot in the battle yesterday. Evil Scholar came over and whispered to Black Crow, "Let's split up with those two. To be honest, I haven't had a good night's sleep with them for the past 2 days. It's too scary." It was obvious that Evil Scholar was wary of Madame Ghostchild and Coffin Man. "What are you afraid of?" Black Crow looked nonchalant. "We're friends. What's there to be afraid of? Also, didn't you see that despite the commotion, Madame Ghostchild and Coffin Man didn't kill a single person? Do you know why?" Evil Scholar nodded. "I'm curious too. I heard that those two are killing gods. Why are they vegetarians all of a sudden?" Black Crow chuckled. "Do you think they would dare to refuse the curator?" Evil Scholar whispered, "Is the curator really that powerful? How many times do I have to tell you? The curator is scary. Ghostchild is as obedient as a little wife in front of the curator." Halfway through his sentence, Black Crow saw Evil Scholar's face turn pale as he looked behind him. "Shit!" Black Crow sensed movement behind him and sucked in a breath of cold air. Turning around, he saw Madame Ghostchild standing behind him with a rattle drum in one hand and a swaddle in the other. She said with a smile, "Mr. Black Crow, please take care of the baby for me. I'll go get changed. After all, I have to meet the curator tonight." F***CK. Black Crow was sure that Madame Ghostchild had heard what he said. The problem was that baby of hers. No matter how brave Black Crow was, he didn't dare to hug it. Fortunately, Black Crow was quick-witted and pulled Evil Scholar over. "What a coincidence, I should change my clothes too. Scholar, please help me." Then, he took the swaddle and stuffed it into Evil Scholar's arms. "And this?" Madame Ghostchild passed the rattle drum to him. "You have to keep shaking it. Otherwise, the baby will get angry." Having said that, Madame Ghostchild glanced at Black Crow before sauntering into the house and closing the door to change. Just as Evil Scholar was about to curse, Black Crow ran away. At that moment, Evil Scholar wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He knew that the baby in the swaddling clothes was nothing good. His entire body was stiff, and all he could do was shake the rattle drum with trembling hands. At this distance, he could hear the sound of breathing coming from the swaddling clothes. If he shook the rattle too slowly, the breathing would be rapid, but if he shook it too quickly, it would not work either. In just a few breaths, Evil Scholar was drenched in sweat, and his clothes were drenched. When Madame Ghostchild finally returned and took the swaddling clothes from him, Evil Scholar nearly fainted from exhaustion. When Black Crow returned, he was carrying a pot of wine, saying it was for Evil Scholar to calm down. Evil Scholar snatched it and gulped down several mouthfuls of it. Black Crow whispered, "Scholar, it's not that I want to set you up, but I have no choice. You didn't offend her, so she definitely won't do anything to you. I must be extremely unlucky to have a friend like you." Evil Scholar was indignant. Time passed. When night fell, Black Crow and Madame Ghostchild seemed to have sensed something. The next moment, they vanished into thin air along with their pet beasts. Evil Scholar heard from Black Crow that this was how one would enter the visitation hall. Black Crow also mentioned that tonight was the day the visitation hall opened. Up until Black Crow and Madame Ghostchild's disappearance, Evil Scholar didn't really believe it. He didn't deny the existence of the curator, but the method of entering the visitation hall was too fantastical. But seeing Black Crow and Madame Ghostchild vanish, Evil Scholar finally believed it. However, he soon realized something else. In this dark and desolate night, all the Snake Country people in the city had fled. In other words, only he and Coffin Man were left here. Among the Namling 5 deities, Madame Ghostchild wasn't the most terrifying. Coffin Man was. Why is my life so tough? Evil Scholar began to worry again. Tonight was going to be another sleepless night for him. Inside the visitation hall, after listening to Black Crow and Madame Ghostchild's narration, Lin Jean knew that Snake Country's crisis was temporarily averted. Black Crow and Madame Ghostchild were truly reliable. They managed to resolve such a major issue in just a few days. Lin Jean was undoubtedly happy and satisfied. As for the helpers Black Crow and Madame Ghostchild mentioned, Lin Jean would also reward them. The reward was obviously related to the pet beasts. Black Crow brought a strand of white cat fur, while Madame Ghostchild explained Coffin Man's situation. Curator, it would be great if we could invite Scholar and Coffin Man into the visitation hall too, Black Crow suddenly said. Lin Jean said nothing. He wanted to, but as the curator, he had no say in who the visitation hall could invite. Since the curator didn't say anything, Black Crow didn't bring it up either, thinking that it wasn't time yet. Lin Jean studied the cat's fur and immediately learned about Evil Scholar's pet beast condition. Spirit-devouring beast, rank 3. Rare beast. Attribute: all 5 elements are present. Status: juvenile. Showing signs of evolution. There are 3 evolution methods, namely, what a good pet beast. Lin Jean couldn't help but sigh inwardly, especially when he saw what this soul-devouring beast would look like when it reached adulthood. It would be even more domineering and powerful, and its potential would be the strongest creature Lin Jean had ever seen so far. If he could take good care of this pet beast until it reached adulthood, even Madame Ghostchild's baby-faced spider might not be its match. However, based on this spirit-devouring beast condition, it had to be at least rank 4 for it to reach adulthood. Lin Jean looked at the evolution method and found it simple. Since Evil Scholar had helped out this time, Lin Jean might, as well, write an evaluation report for him. As for the evolution method, Lin Jean could pick one and write it down. Once he was done, Lin Jean handed the evaluation report to Black Crow. Black Crow respectfully received it and skimmed through it, feeling elated. He and Evil Scholar were good friends who got along well with each other. Now that the latter had asked for help, he would feel embarrassed if he didn't give him something good in return. Moreover, he had already described the curator as a top-notch expert. In that case, only a valuable evaluation report like this would be befitting of the curator's status. In other words, he could take this back and tell Evil Scholar that the curator he admired was truly amazing. With just a single strand of cat fur, he was able to produce an evaluation report that couldn't be bought anywhere else. Then Black Crow thought of another good friend of his. Chapter 215. Curator, if anyone else wishes to have you appraise their beast, can I bring their fur and blood to ask for an evaluation report? Black Crow asked. Lin Jean didn't mind. After all, it would be beneficial for him if he could collect more information on pet beasts. However, if it was so easy for him to appraise beasts, the image he had built up as a dignified curator would be downgraded. After giving it some thought, Lin Jean said, "Since you and Ghostchild have helped me out this time, I can appraise your beast for free once more. Anything more than that is fine, unless you need help with other matters." Black Crow nodded. Meanwhile, Lin Jean handed Madame Ghostchild a few pills for her to give to Coffin Man. Coffin Man's pet beast had yet to recover from its injuries, just like Madame Ghostchild's baby-faced spider. Hence, the most important thing for them to do now was to recuperate and wait for their injuries to heal. Everything else could wait until they recovered. Madame Ghostchild retreated in satisfaction. Lin Jean then turned to Yi Yuzhou. Yi Yuzhou had performed well this time. During a critical moment, the appraiser stood on Lin Jin's side, so he was rewarded. Thus, the incident with Snake Country came to an end. The other visitors didn't know much about the incident. Jiang Ziki was fine. With his personality, he wouldn't ask about things he didn't understand. But He Qing was different, especially when she heard that this incident clearly had something to do with Jade Dragon Kingdom. Her ears perked up right from the start. If she wasn't afraid of being rude, she would have asked about it. But now, she couldn't hold it in any longer. After all, she was a member of Jade Dragon Kingdom's royal family. Lin Jin knew she was going to ask about it, but he wouldn't tell He Qing about it. After all, it didn't have much to do with her. Hence, Lin Jin rejected He Qing's question. He Qing looked annoyed, but since the curator wouldn't say anything, there was nothing she could do. She couldn't get an answer out of him, but she could investigate further. But she had to ask about her sister's illness. Lin Jin's answer to this was even simpler. Someone will come and treat her in a few days. He Qing was baffled, but out of trust for the curator, she didn't probe further. Old Tian, or Tian Bao, took a few steps forward and half knelt on the ground. He took out a wooden box and presented it with both hands. Curator, Old Tian has a treasure to offer. Old Tian's sudden kneeling gave everyone a fright. No one would have thought that Old Tian, who was previously fearless and arrogant, would actually bow to them on his third visit. The changes were too great. The others didn't say much to Old Tian. They weren't familiar with him, so they didn't say anything. After all, they could tell that the curator wasn't satisfied with Old Tian. That was how it was. The curator wouldn't hold it against you if you didn't know anything the first time you came. But the second time you came, you still wouldn't cooperate. Everyone could see the curator's displeasure the last time, so everyone kept a respectful distance from Old Tian. Unexpectedly, Old Tian was so straightforward this time. He knelt down and offered his treasures. It all depended on the curator's reaction. Everyone turned to Lin Jin. Lin Jin was indeed dissatisfied with Old Tian. At first, he didn't want to accept the man's gift, but when Old Tian opened the wooden box, Lin Jin was stunned. Inside the wooden box in Old Tian's hand was a medicinal herb. It was as thick as a finger and half a foot long, but upon closer inspection, one could see that it was actually a worm. Worm stalk, a unique medicinal herb. However, the worm stalk in Old Tian's hand was covered in a layer of frost. Just then, Jiang Ziki noticed the worm stalk in Old Tian's hand and said, Tianshan worm stalk is a cold plant with annual growth rings. The more growth rings it has, the more valuable it is and the more effective it will be. This worm stalk has more than 100 annual growth rings, making it the best of the best. It's extremely rare, so you mustn't miss this opportunity, curator. This item is something that can only be found by chance. Jiang Ziki was clearly well-versed in pharmacology. He was saying this out of kindness to remind the curator not to miss out on this treasure. However, Lin Jin was knowledgeable as well. This worm stalk just happened to be one of the ingredients Lin Jin needed for pelletization. For example, the beast marrow cleansing pill for Xiaohua required an aged worm stalk. Goldie also needed this to evolve into rank 4. A 100-year-old worm stalk might be fine for Xiaohua, but it was too important for Goldie. Goldie was a beast with the Golden Crow's bloodline. The last time he evolved was because he ate an emerald bloodworm, a creature of extreme yang energy. Combined with the sun, Goldie was able to force his evolution. As for the next step of advancement, it would be very difficult to find something similar to the extreme yang. However, he could do it the other way around. An item of extreme yin energy would work too. Or he could refine a supreme yin pill for Goldie to consume. Extreme yin energy could stimulate the awakening of the Golden Crow's bloodline. Once that happened, it would be easy for him to evolve into rank 4. To refine the supreme yin pill, a worm stalk with a cold attribute was a must, especially one that was at least 100 years old. Lin Jin had the prescription a long time ago, but the herbs required were too difficult to find. Lin Jin had planned to ask the visitors for help, but to his surprise, Old Tian had delivered the most important herb to him first. Although he didn't like Old Tian, there was no reason not to accept such a good gift. Moreover, with this 100-year-old worm stalk, Lin Jin no longer found Old Tian as irritating as before. Lin Jin reached out to retrieve the wooden box and put the herb away. I'll be taking this. It was a simple sentence, but Old Tian was so excited that he was trembling. He knew he had done the right thing. Although it pained him to offer up this 100-year-old worm stock, it was more important to change the curator's opinion. He had been too foolish to realize the curator's prowess. Fortunately, it wasn't too late. Tian Bao was a man born in the wilderness and had always been a thief. In his early years, he started stealing, and when he became stronger, he started robbing openly. In the end, he occupied a mountain and gathered a large group of brothers around him. Feasting and drinking, he lived a carefree life. Hence, when he was first dragged into the visitation hall, he was naturally arrogant. But after experiencing it twice and witnessing the curator's prowess with his own eyes, Tian Bao also asked his villainous friends about Madame Ghostchild's name. The 5 Nanling deities were a household name, at least in the southern continent. Coincidentally, Tian Bao was in the southern continent as well. Anyone who heard of Madame Ghostchild's name would be able to recite it to the storyteller for an entire day and night without repeating a single word. When he found out, Tian Bao shuddered. Madame Ghostchild was someone who could squash him to death with a flick of her finger. Wouldn't the curator, who could easily subdue her, be even more terrifying? Hence, despite his heartache, Tian Bao insisted on bringing along the 100-year-old worm stock that he had treasured for a long time. Striking while the iron was hot, he brought out another bag filled with the pelts of his subordinates' pet beasts. He knew that the curator usually had his subordinates collect pet beast pelts. Although he didn't know why, it was obvious that the curator could use these pelts to appraise beasts. If the curator was in a good mood, he could ask him about the evaluation. But if he was in a bad mood, he wouldn't ask. Chapter 2:16. The curator seemed to be in a good mood. Hence, after presenting the large bag of beast pelts, Tian Bao said respectfully, "Curator, these are the pet beasts of some of my friends and family. If you could give me a few appraisals, old Tian would be eternally grateful. Next time, I will surely traverse the mountains in search of treasures for you, curator." Even Yi Qing was dumbfounded by his reverence. She mused, "This old Tian sure knows what he's doing. Last time, he was so arrogant that he refused to submit to anyone. Now he's on his knees begging for help. Can he not be so two-faced?" Frankly speaking, old Tian's actions were normal. If he continued to be stubborn this time, the curator would probably get angry and might even strip him of his visitor status. Yi Qing was making wild guesses. However, little did she know that the omnipotent curator had no idea how to strip him of his visitor status. If he did, he would have kicked old Tian out the first time. Lin Jin went through the beast hides and furs in his bag. The number of beasts recorded in the museum had increased, and among them, there were some rare beasts that were worthy of his attention. Most of them were ordinary mountain beasts that weren't worth mentioning. Glancing at old Tian, Lin Jin pondered for a moment before taking out a pill. This pill was the 6 Beast Soul pill, which was used for the Shadow Wolf's evolution. It was obvious that this pill wasn't meant for old Tian's pet beast. Tossing the pill to old Tian, Lin Jin said, "You've brought 89 pet pelts with you, and one of them is a Nanjiang slanted-eyed tiger. It looks pretty good and has an wind attribute. Feed this pill to that tiger and consider it a reward for your efforts." Lin Jin spoke casually. He didn't refine this pill. It was refined by the Sure family's alchemist. To be honest, the quality was average. But when it came to pills, they had to be tailored to the right conditions. If a pet beast with a compatible attribute consumed the pill, it would definitely benefit. But if it was a beast that was compatible with the pill, it would greatly benefit the user. Take the Shadow Wolf, for example. After consuming the 6 Shadow Beast Soul pill, it evolved immediately. Hence, it depended on who ate it. Lin Jin was still prejudiced against old Tian. Moreover, old Tian's pet beast was a rank 3 Tyrannosaurus. It wasn't like he didn't have an evolution method, but why would Lin Jin give it to him? Even if he did, old Tian did not know how long it would take for the Tyrannosaurus to evolve. But the rank 2 Southern Wilderness suspended-eyed tiger that he had chosen was different. No matter its attribute or state, it was extremely compatible with the 6 Beast Soul pill. If there was no accident, that fierce beast would definitely advance on the spot after eating it. Old Tian did not dare to say anything after receiving the pill. He was still a little suspicious. Everyone else had given him an evaluation report, but he had only received an unknown pill. But now he absolutely did not dare to show any dissatisfaction. Even if the curator did not give him anything, he had already made up his mind to respectfully worship the curator's party ancestors and not dare to offend them in the slightest. Old Tian's matter was finally settled. Lin Jin glanced at the other wooden doors in the visitation hall. The doors behind number 10 were still tightly shut. No new visitors had entered the visitation hall twice in a row. Lin Jin didn't know why, but there was nothing he could do. He had other matters to attend to. After informing the visitors, Lin Jin retreated, leaving them alone. After the curator left, the visitors continued to stay and interact with each other. This had gradually become a habit. Even arrogant people like Madame Ghostchild and Jiang Ziki stayed behind. Unlike last time, Old Tian was ignored. But this time, the curator accepted his medicinal ingredients and even gave him a pill. This meant that the curator had accepted him. Now that the curator had accepted him, the other visitors wouldn't reject him either. Hence, Old Tian realized that he was lucky enough to blend into this small circle. This small circle wasn't as simple as it seemed. Old Tian had listened carefully. It seemed like Black Crow and Madame Ghostchild had gone to Grassy Continent Snake Country together to stir up trouble, and they even succeeded. Old Tian had never heard of Grassy Continent Snake Country. After all, it was quite a distance away from Southern Continent. Old Tian wasn't an inexperienced person, but he knew the concept of an intermediate country. That was a country that had a rank 4 pet beast as its overseer. Only then could it be considered an intermediate country. Such forces existed in Southern Continent as well. Old Tian and his group had offended an intermediate country many years ago and ended up being hunted down for several years. It could be said that they were in a sorry state and nearly died in the hands of their pursuers. Because of this, they had no choice but to hide in the mountains, robbing people for a living. To put it nicely, they were the kings of a mountain, living a carefree life. To put it bluntly, they were just a bunch of rabble seeking survival. Now that he had the chance to chat and laugh with Black Crow and Madame Ghostchild, existences that could go up against an intermediate country, Old Tian felt like his realm had improved quite a bit. It was as if he could easily destroy an entire country while chatting and laughing. This time, Black Crow brought wine for Jiang Ziki. Jiang Ziki also brought quite a number of rare fruits for everyone to eat. Many of them were varieties no one had ever heard of. He Ching was very happy. She did not come empty-handed. She took out a paper bag that was filled with exquisitely made snacks. Yi Yuzhou's eyebrows twitched when he saw them. He was knowledgeable, and the pastries he Ching brought were exquisitely made. They definitely couldn't be found in an ordinary place. They looked like snacks used by the royal family. Moreover, the oiled paper used to wrap the pastries was very particular as it couldn't be found anywhere else. More importantly, Yi Yuzhou saw a small jade seal on the paper. The others might not be able to recognize it, but Yi Yuzhou was a citizen of Jade Dragon Kingdom. He was also a guardian of the kingdom and was under the jurisdiction of the National Guardian. Strictly speaking, he had an official position. Hence, he could recognize the seal of Jade Dragon Kingdom's royalty. He glanced at He Ching, wanting to ask her something, but held himself back. The visitation hall's rule was that no one asked about one's background. Although he had some guesses, it wasn't appropriate for him to ask directly. However, he was certain that the young lady was most likely a member of Jade Dragon Kingdom's royalty. Could she be one of the princesses? Yi Yuzhou's thoughts ran wild. Then, he remembered that the young lady had sought medical attention for her sister, and the curator said that someone would be there to treat her in a few days. Back then, Yi Yuzhou was curious, since the curator said that he must know about the young lady's background. Yi Yuzhou was certain that the curator was currently in Jade Dragon Kingdom. Could it be? Yi Yuzhou suddenly thought of a possibility. He knew that Lu Bin was here to invite Lin Jin over to the royal capital as a guest. With that, they were finally on the same page. When the curator said that someone would be there to treat her, he must be referring to his disciple, Lin Jin. So everything was within the curator's calculations. Now that he knew this, Yi Yujo dared not ask further. However, he made up his mind. Since he was going to Jade Dragon City anyway, he might as well go with Lin Jin. Once he did, he would know everything. Feeling smug, Yi Yujo began enjoying the pastries and the delicacies. As usual, the visitors chatted and exchanged what they needed. Some of them needed special ingredients and herbs, while others wanted to sample exotic delicacies and wines. After chatting for more than 2 hours, they said their goodbyes and agreed to meet again in 7 days. Chapter 217. Tian Bao was overjoyed this time. He could finally blend into this little circle. If he could boast that he was acquainted with Madame Ghostchild and that they could call each other brothers, he was sure that the other bandits would wet their pants in fright. After leaving the visitation hall, Tian Bao couldn't wait to summon one of his sworn brothers. The rank 2 Nanjiang Angle-Eyed Tiger was his brother's pet beast. Old 7, where's your pet beast? Tian Bao wanted to see what the curator's pill was like. Speaking of which, he did consider keeping the pill for his pet beast. But after some thought, he decided against it. Since the curator had named the pill for the Nanjiang Angle-Eyed Tiger, there must be a reason for it. If he didn't listen and the curator found out, he might get into trouble. He might as well follow the curator's instructions. He was also curious to see what would happen if the Nanjiang Angle-Eyed Tiger ate the curator's pill. Old 7 was a burly man. Upon hearing Tian Bao's order, he immediately summoned his pet beast. The Nanjiang Angle-Eyed Tiger was massive. Including its tail, it was over 10 feet long. Its combat strength wasn't weak either. Among rank 2 pet beasts, it was considered superior. Tian Bao fed the Nanjiang Angle-Eyed Tiger the pill. Brother 2, what did you feed Big Cat? Old 7 loved this pet beast very much. Although he trusted Tian Bao, he was still afraid that the latter would feed his pet beast anything else. Cut the crap. Just watch, Tian Bao scolded impatiently. At this time, the boss of the stronghold also came. This time, he also wanted to ask about Tian Bao's situation, but seeing that Tian Bao was concentrating on Old 7's Nanjiang Sky-Eyed Tiger, the bandit boss didn't say a word. After consuming the pill, the Nanjiang Angle-Eyed Tiger reacted immediately. First, it paced around in a frenzy. Then, with a sudden roar, an eerie gust of wind emanated from its body, fluttering everyone's clothes. Then, the wind grew stronger, roaring in everyone's ears. The couplets pasted on the wall were torn apart by the gust and swept into the air. What a strong gust of wind, the bandit boss exclaimed. Apart from Tian Bao, who was relatively calm, everyone else was shocked, not knowing what was going on. Brothers, don't panic. I just fed Old 7's pet beast a pill bestowed by curator. As for its specific effects, you'll find out soon enough. In fact, Tian Bao had no idea what the pill was for, so that was all he said. In this group of bandits, except for a few who had fled with their lives, because they couldn't survive, most of them had become bandits because they couldn't survive anymore. None of their pet beasts were strong. Tian Bao's tyrannical dragon was the strongest among them. Other than that, there were only a handful of rank 2 beasts. Most of them were ordinary rank 1 mountain beasts. Naturally, most people had never seen a ferocious beast evolve. Tian Bao had seen it before. Still, he found it hard to believe that a random pill from the curator could help Old 7's pet beast evolve. That was impossible, right? At this moment, his heart was beating rapidly, and his eyes were wide open as he watched carefully. The sound of bones growing could be heard from the body of the southern border Angle-Eyed Tiger. Even the size of the tiger began to increase, its fur grew, and its claws and teeth became sharper. In terms of aura, it was like climbing a mountain, constantly growing. The next instant, the southern border Angle-Eyed Tiger breathed out a gust of wind. Like a blade, it swept forward and crushed a large boulder in front of it. Taking another look, the southern border Angle-Eyed Tiger had doubled in size. Even Tian Bao's tyrannical dragon paled in comparison to its aura. As for the other pet beasts, they were all curled up in a ball, suppressed by the tiger's aura. Rank 3, Tian Bao's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Although he had thought of this possibility, he was still astounded to witness with his own eyes how a single pill could create a rank 3 pet beast. Curator's means are so mysterious. To think that he could create a rank 3 pet beast so easily. This is terrifying. If Tian Bao was so shocked, the others were just as dumbfounded. The most surprised among them was obviously Old Seven. He didn't expect his pet beast to evolve into rank 3 in the blink of an eye. Rank 3? How many rank 3 pet beasts were there in their village? Counting with his fingers, there was only one in the past, and that was second brother's tyrannical dragon. Now, there was another one. Didn't this mean that Old Seven's status was now the same as second brother's? At this thought, Old Seven immediately felt proud and elated. After the other brothers understood the situation, they all looked at Old Seven enviously. At the same time, they were displeased. Why didn't second brother help their pet beasts evolve? Not to mention the subordinates. Even the boss of the stronghold felt a little envious and jealous. His own pet beast was rank 2 too. Why did second brother only help Old Seven when he went to the visitation hall to ask for guidance? Could there be some unspeakable secret between them? There were suspicions, but they couldn't say it out loud. On the surface, everyone was still in a harmonious mood as they went up to congratulate Old Seven. But that was when a rift began to form. Lin Jin's mansion. Yesterday, Lin Jin had entered the mountain to bring Shang'er, Little Five, the fox cubs, and the great white ape back to Maple City. His plan to bring these monsters back to the city wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. It had been made after careful consideration. Take Shang'er and Little Five, for example. Even if they knew transfiguration and were familiar with etiquette, they could still tell that they were acting a little unnatural. This was because they lived in the wilderness and rarely interacted with humans. If they caused trouble in the secular world, even if they were monsters, after some time, they would turn into normal humans and no one would be able to tell that they were anything but normal. This was beneficial to their cultivation of the shape-shifting technique. This was written in the Museum of Deadly Beasts as well. In a Monster King's transfiguration art, the beginning of transfiguration was to observe, learn, and then imitate. The average person would find it hard to tell the difference. The best method was to immerse one's self in the secular world and be exposed to the aura of the mortal world. Lin Jin gave it some thought. Since the best way to cultivate transfiguration was to immerse one's self in the secular world, bringing Shang'er and the others here shouldn't be a problem. Monsters were usually wild and difficult to tame, so they would always cause trouble. Hence, humans and monsters had always been enemies. However, Lin Jin was a transmigrated soul, so he scoffed at this theory. In this world, how could there be conflict for no reason? They just didn't understand it. Take Shang'er and the others, for example. If someone were to restrain them, they could behave like humans, obeying the law, being educated, and even surpassing humans. Weren't there many disobedient and mischievous human children as well? It was the same for all the evildoers. Monsters were just like humans. They had to be taught well and restrained. Humans' restraint was the law, but for monsters, only Lin Jin could keep them in check for now. Fortunately, whether it was Shang'er, the foxes, or the great white ape, they were all respectful of him. Lin Jin believed that they would still listen to him. After settling Shang'er and the others down, the little foxes stayed in the yard. The great white ape could now maintain his transformation and shrink his size. Lin Jin was most worried about him. Recently, Lin Jin learned a seal technique from the Museum of Deadly Beasts that could suppress demonic aura. If the great white ape couldn't maintain its transformation technique, a seal could disperse its demonic aura, preventing it from revealing its true form. Hence, for this trip to the royal capital with Liu Bin, Lin Jin planned to bring the great white ape along. Xiaohua was his pet beast, so he obviously had to bring him along. Other than that, the others would stay at home and be taken care of by Shang. Chapter 218. Come to think of it, Liu Bin had been rushing him since yesterday. However, as Lin Jin wasn't done with his instructions, he dragged it on for another 2 days. After all, now that Shang'er was here, Lin Jin had to bring her around to visit the neighbors and get to know them. He also had to get to know Zhao Ying, Lu Xiaoyun, and the others. As for Shang'er's identity, Lin Jin gave it some thought. If he said she was his younger sister, no one would believe him. His Lin family definitely didn't have a daughter like this in the official records. Hence, he decided to make Shang'er his younger sister. No one would really look into it anyway. Even if they did, he wouldn't be afraid. Right now, Lin Jin was one of the most influential people in Maple City. From a city lord manor to the neighbors, who wouldn't give him some face? Who would dare to look into it? Even if someone noticed something amiss, they wouldn't be able to do anything about it. After all, he still had the Shi and Zhu families to take care of him. Hence, Lin Jin was at ease. Unknowingly, his position in Maple City had been solidified and unshakable. After another day of delay, Lu Bin had been waiting at the door since early in the morning. Lin Jin knew that he had to leave with Lu Bin today no matter what. Moreover, he had promised I Ching, so there was no way he could escape this trip to the royal capital. So be it. Before he left, Lin Jin pondered for a moment before returning to his house. He cut the 100-year cold cordyceps that old Tian gifted him into two. He took one section with him for Xiao Hua to refine pills into. He left the other section for Shang'er, instructing her to feed Goldie a small piece every other day and not to give him too much at one time. Unlike other pet beasts, Goldie didn't cultivate at all. He didn't even learn a single word of the beast energy formation. Other than that, he just did whatever he wanted. Hence, for this guy to evolve, it was both easy and difficult at the same time. It was easy because Goldie was too talented and his Golden Crow bloodline was too powerful. As long as he had a fortuitous encounter, evolution was only a matter of time. But that was where the difficulty lay. Without someone to guide him, Goldie might just die during one of those fortuitous encounters if he was unlucky. Just like the last time when Goldie was devouring the emerald beetle. If Lin Jin hadn't guided it with a medicinal concoction to dissolve the pure yang energy, forget evolving, Goldie might not even be able to make it through the ordeal. The 100-year coldworm grass was a treasure that could help Big Yellow advance. Of course, it could not be eaten whole. If that was the case, Big Yellow would be finished even if it was a Class 3 beast. According to the effects of the medicine, half would be enough. Even this half couldn't be fed all at once. It had to be fed gradually bit by bit. Hence, Lin Jin instructed Shang'er to give Goldie a slice every other day. With this, they could finish the food in 10 days. Lin Jin estimated that he would be able to return in 10 days, so it wouldn't be a problem to eat a little every other day. Once he returned, he could help Goldie evolve and Lin Jin would have another rank 4 on his side. Just thinking about it made him happy. While I'm away, don't run around. If you need anything, you can ask Zhao Ying and Lu Xiaoyun for help. Lin Jin instructed Shang'er. It was her first time staying in the city, so Shang'er was a little reserved. But to reassure Lin Jin, Shang'er agreed readily. I'll be going then. Lin Jin strode out the door, with Xiao Hua following behind. The white ape's fur had been dyed black using a secret spell, making him look just like an ordinary black ape. Lu Bin, who was waiting outside, gaped at the sight of Lin Jin riding on Xiao Hua's back. Lu Bin knew about the fire wolf, but who the hell was this black ape? That wasn't the main point. Lin Jin's pet beast was a rank 4 beast. How could a rank 4 beast tolerate another pet beast riding on it? But now, Xiao Hua didn't seem to mind at all. Lu Bin was shocked, but it wasn't his place to ask. He could only attribute it to Lin Jin's expertise in beast taming. At the same time, Lu Bin met Shang'er, who had come out to send him off. Even someone as young as Lu Bin couldn't help but be stunned at the sight of Shang'er. He had seen many beauties before, but this was probably the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Her beauty could topple a nation and shock anyone. This woman in Appraiser Lin's house was truly the most beautiful person Lu Bin had ever seen in his life. Not one of them. Lu Bin broke into a smile, as if he knew everything. He was about to introduce her to him, but when he saw the strange smile on Lu Bin's face, he was confused. Mr. Lu, this is my foster sister. Although he didn't know what Lu Bin was smiling about, he introduced her anyway. Foster sister? Right? Appraiser Lin must be hiding a mistress, but was too embarrassed to say it out loud. Lu Bin was an experienced man, so how could he not understand the man's thoughts? He nodded in greeting and didn't ask anything else. "Appraiser Lin, can we move now?" Lubin suddenly asked. Truth be told, he had been delayed in Maple City for quite some time now. Had it been someone else, he would have kidnapped them to the royal capital, even if he had to resort to force. He obviously didn't dare to kidnap anyone now. Etiquette aside, he might not be able to defeat Lin Jin even if he were to resort to violence. After all, Lin Jin had a rank 4 pet beast. Since Lin Jin had told them what he needed to, it was time to leave. He followed Lu Bin to a spacious area. Along the way, Shang and Little Five accompanied him reluctantly. Once they arrived, Lu Bin used a secret technique to summon 2 eagles. Both of them were large and sturdy breeds. Every time Lin Jin saw an eagle beast that could be used as a means of transportation, he would feel envious. He thought about asking if he could get one of these along the way so that he could ride on an eagle. It would be fast and flashy. Lu Bin hopped onto one of the eagles. Lin Jin followed suit and hopped on as well. Xiao Hua and White Ape hopped on as well, making the eagle a little strained. Lin Jin looked embarrassed as he glanced at Lu Bin. The latter sighed and said, "It's fine. Junior Yujo will be giving you a ride too. He has an eagle beast with him, so you can borrow it." Old Yu was giving him a ride? Lin Jin looked up at the sky. Sure enough, there was an eagle circling above. The 2 eagles took flight, and Lin Jin waved at Shang'er and the others below. Soon, they were 1,000 feet up in the air. The houses below were like toys, and the humans were like ants. Sure enough, Yi Yujo was waiting on his eagle. When he saw Lin Jin, he approached and saluted. "Appraiser Lin, I wish you luck on your trip to Jade Dragon City." Lin Jin knew that Yi Yujo was treating him as the curator's disciple, so he was polite, even respectful. Also, it seemed like Yi Yujo had guessed why Lin Jin was heading to the royal capital. Lin Jin hadn't thought about being a government disciple at first, but Yi Yujo had misunderstood, so Lin Jin decided to play along. Now that he thought about it, borrowing this identity wasn't a bad idea. At least someone like Yi Yujo would listen to Lin Jin's orders. Even if Lin Jin asked him to do something, Yi Yujo wouldn't refuse. Lu Bin was a straightforward person. Yi Yujo was stunned when he said he wanted to borrow the eagle beast. He was planning to visit Jade Dragon City in 2 days to see how the curator's disciple would save his people. If he borrowed the eagle beast, wouldn't he have to go there on foot? But he had to. Yi Yujo agreed readily. He figured that he would have to borrow it from Bai Jinkong when the time came. Although he had some bad blood with Bai Jinkong, he was still Maple City's #1 expert and a member of the nation's defense department. Bai Jinkong had to lend him the eagle beast, even if he didn't want to. After bidding farewell to Yi Yujo, Lu Bin rode on an eagle, while Xiao Hua and White Ape rode on another. With Lu Bin leading the way, the 3 eagles spread their wings and soared into the sky, heading straight for Jade Dragon City under the sun. Chapter 219. Come to think of it, this was Lin Jin's first time traveling so far. The furthest he had gone before was a village at the border of Maple City's jurisdiction. That distance was no more than 200 miles, but this trip to Jade Dragon City was at least 800 miles away. If he were to walk, who knew how long it would take him? Riding a pet beast might be faster, but it was nowhere near as good as flying. Before transmigrating, Lin Jin had taken a plane before. But without a doubt, the feeling of flying and riding an eagle beast were 2 entirely different things. The feeling of being in the sky above and the earth below, while roaming freely between heaven and earth, wasn't something one could experience from sitting in a metal box. Unknowingly, Lin Jin's state of mind had improved significantly. He had wanted to ask some questions along the way, but with the howling wind, he figured he wouldn't be able to hear anything even if he did. So, he might as well head there first. The eagles soared into the sky, and before he knew it, they had already crossed the mountains and rivers. 2 hours later, the eagle was heading downwards. Only then did Lin Jin realize that they had arrived at the royal city's territory. Moments later, the border of the city could be seen in the distance. It stretched for more than 10,000 feet and was much larger than Maple City. Outside the city, the eagle landed and 2 humans and 2 beasts dismounted. Appraiser Lin, this is Jade Dragon City. The royal city has a rule that forbids flying into the city, so I'll have to trouble you to take a few more steps. Lu Bin straightened his clothes. Lin Ji nodded. Taking a few steps wasn't a problem. Unable to resist, Lin Jin asked about the eagle beast. Taken aback, Lu Bin smiled. I was wondering what it was. If Appraiser Lin likes it, I'll give you one when we return. Lin Jin was overjoyed at this. He pretended to reject the offer before accepting it. Of course, Lin Jin knew that Lu Bin was referring to when they returned. In other words, if Lin Jin failed to cure a certain someone's illness and dispel the curse, he might not be able to get his hands on this eagle. Jade Dragon City was indeed majestic. Just the number of people entering and exiting the city was several times livelier than Maple City. Upon entering the city, Lin Jin saw shops lining both sides of the main street near the front gate. Crowds of people bustled and hawked their wares one after another. Best of all, everyone had pet beasts of all shapes and sizes. Even Lin Jin had never seen many beasts before. Good place. Lin Jin was overjoyed. As he walked, he appraised beasts along the way. Those that were close to him would be touched, and those that were further away would be pricked by the coiled wire needle. When they reached the place where they were going to rest, they recorded over 200 beasts. Their efficiency was truly high, and there were quite a few rare beasts among them. Royal City was indeed Royal City. Appraiser Lin, this is the most elegant inn in the royal capital. Please wait here and rest for a moment while I report to my master, Lu Bin said with a salute. Lin Ji nodded. Speaking of which, Lin Ji knew who Lu Bin was referring to. If he wasn't mistaken, it was one of the royal family's princesses, He Qing's elder sister. Logically speaking, if Lu Bin served the royal family, then everyone in the royal family should be his master. Yet, Lu Bin seemed to treat the other members of the royal family with disdain. Lin Jin even heard that Lu Bin had once slammed a table and cursed at Jade Dragon Kingdom's emperor. This was the strange part. Why was Lu Bin dismissive of the other members of the royal family, but respectfully addressed the woman disguised as a man as master? He couldn't figure it out. Lin Jin was curious about this, but now wasn't the time to ask about it. He would wait until they met and see how things went. As for how to save her, Lin Jin already had a plan in mind. Speaking of which, the princess curse was quite powerful. It was also a bestial soul curse. Back then, Lin Jin was able to dispel Tan Lin's curse with a flick of his finger. If she were to consume a 9-water floating cloud pill, she could similarly dispel it. It was simple and straightforward. However, compared to Tan Lin's bestial soul curse, the one on the princess was much more powerful. There was no comparison between the two. Even the treatment method in the Museum of Deadly Beasts was rather vague. But in the end, there was still a way to dispel it. As long as it could be dispelled, everything would be fine. Lu Bin went. Lin Jin couldn't stay in the house for long, so he went out to the streets. He didn't go too far as he planned to take a stroll around the area. Riding on Xiao Hua's back, White Ape looked around curiously. To be on the safe side, Lin Jin slapped a spirit mark on the ape so that it could better maintain its form. After memorizing the inn's location, Lin Jin strolled along the stone path, taking in the bustling city. Xiao Hua followed behind him while White Ape looked left and right, wishing he could grow more eyes. There was an art shop up ahead. The interior of the shop was transparent, and there were many famous paintings hanging on the walls. At a glance, Lin Jin spotted a landscape painting. It was exquisite, and the brushwork was mellow. Looking at it, it was as if he was there. Lin Jin went closer to take a look and saw that it was Gu Mengzhong's signature. It was a painting by Master Gu. Lin Jin recalled that Gu Mengzhong was a citizen of the city, and he was a famous calligraphy master here. Ever since Master Gu left Maple City with his ink monster to travel around, Lin Jin hadn't seen him. But occasionally, he would hear rumors of Master Gu killing evil with his sword. Lin Jin could tell that Master Gu had been longing to travel the world with his sword for a long time, but he never had a suitable pet beast. Now that he had a rank 3 ink monster that could transform at will, His dream was finally fulfilled. I wonder if Master Gu is in the city, Lin Jin mused. If Gu Mengzhong was here, he could pay him a visit. Just then, Lin Jin sensed something. Turning around, he saw a man talking to White Ape who was on Xiaohua's back. Seeing Lin Jin turn around, that man looked over as well. Greetings, young master. This man was skinny but had a decent aura. His eyes were spirited, and he was dressed like an ordinary man. He bowed at Lin Jin. However, Lin Jin could tell that there was no kindness in this man's eyes. In fact, there was hostility and disdain. That was odd. Lin Jin saw it clearly. This man was indeed talking to White Ape. There was a lot more to this than meets the eye. White Ape was no longer an average beast. Because he didn't form a blood pact with it, after cultivating the beast energy formation, he had transformed into a monster. Lin Jin was well aware of this. This man was talking to White Ape furtively. Could he have noticed something? Lin Jin began studying this man carefully. The man spoke again. Young master, does this White Ape belong to you? Lin Jin nodded. He studied the skinny man before him. With his current level of insight, he could tell something was amiss. There was a faint aura around this man, and he had thick body hair. Although there was nothing wrong with his speech and actions, there seemed to be something moving under his robes. Lin Jin had seen the world. Even without the coiled wire needle, with his current abilities, he could tell that this scrawny man before him wasn't human. That faintly discernible demonic aura might be able to fool others. But how could it fool Lin Jin, who spent most of his time with monsters? This was a monster, and a monster that knew how to shapeshift. Lin Jin was shocked. He didn't expect to encounter a shape-shifting monster in broad daylight in Jade Dragon City. This was unbelievable. This man must be very confident in his shape-shifting skills, which was why he dared to move around in the city in broad daylight. The man spoke again. Young master, I would like to buy this White Ape. Please state your price. Chapter 220. By White Ape? Lin Jin immediately understood what was going on. This humanoid demonic beast had probably noticed the White Ape a while ago. After all, they were both demonic beasts, so their ability to sense each other was much stronger. It was because he could tell that White Ape was a monster that he secretly approached him for a chat. But to his surprise, White Ape didn't know how to speak. Perhaps this person wanted to buy White Ape to save his own kind. Next, Lin Jin silently flicked out his coiled wire needle. After touching the monster, he confirmed his suspicions. This was indeed a monster that could shape-shift, and it was a monkey demon. It was no wonder he was so thin and had so much body hair. Even when he shape-shifted, some of his unique characteristics were still preserved. However, Lin Jin clearly saw something wrapped around the man's waist. If he wasn't mistaken, it was the monkey demon's tail. It seemed like the shape-shifting skill this man had mastered was either flawed or he hadn't cultivated it to perfection. Lin Jin obviously wouldn't sell White Ape. He shook his head and was about to ask for more details when the monkey demon seemed to have sensed something. He turned around and disappeared into the crowd. Soon, Lu Bin arrived. Appraiser Lin, it was easy for me to find you. Lin Jin quickly apologized. He didn't tell Lu Bin about the monkey demon, so he could put it aside for now. However, the officials must be oblivious to the existence of these monsters. Otherwise, the monkey demon wouldn't have left in such a hurry. Since he had to stay in the royal capital for some time, there was no hurry. He could take his time to investigate. Lu Bin told Lin Jin that he could meet the patient today. At this point, Lu Bin no longer hid the truth. He told Lin Jin that his master was Jade Dragon Kingdom's 6th princess, Hiyu. Lin Jin nodded. Her surname was indeed He, just as he had guessed. Lu Bin didn't know much about Hiyu's curse. He only told Lin Jin that the curse had been passed down from generation to generation. Lin Jin was puzzled. Lu Bin explained. It turned out that this curse had been passed down in the Jade Dragon Kingdom for 5 generations. About 50 years ago, a woman in the Jade Dragon Kingdom was afflicted with this curse for the first time. She didn't live past her coming-of-age ceremony. Then, the curse would reappear on another woman of the royal family until the host was tortured to death. This time, it was Hiyu's turn. Just from hearing about it, one could tell that it was a thorny problem. The Jade Dragon Kingdom's royalty controlled all resources in the kingdom, so it wouldn't be difficult for them to find any miracle pills or genius healers. However, none of the women who were cursed in the previous generation survived. From this point, it could be seen that even the royal family was helpless. Lin Jin picked up on a crucial point in Lu Bin's explanation. Is Princess Hiyu's coming-of-age ceremony coming up soon? Lin Jin asked. Lu Bin nodded. 10 days later. Oh. Lin Jin didn't ask any more questions. It was no wonder Lu Bin was so anxious. He was on the brink of death. Lin Jin didn't ask. Instead, Lu Bin answered, "It's all thanks to appraiser Lin's prescription. If it weren't for the 9 water-floating cloud pill's extraordinary effects, my master would have ended up like the other victims, lying in bed waiting for death." Of course, the 9 water-floating cloud pill was outstanding, and there was no doubt that it could dispel evil and expel curses. However, this also meant that the curse on Hiyu's body was even more difficult to deal with. However, since the Museum of Deadly Beasts had a cure, there was nothing to be afraid of. Lin Jin looked confused. Lu Bin had been carefully observing Lin Jin's reaction throughout the entire process. When he noticed that appraiser Lin remained unfazed after Lu Bin described the horror of the curse, he knew that Lin Jin was confident. Or perhaps, the ignorant were fearless. However, the former was more likely. After all, Lu Bin had witnessed Lin Jin's abilities with his own eyes. Moreover, Yi Yuzhou had made the curator sound like nothing in the world was too difficult for him. Even if Lin Jin couldn't handle it, Yi Yuzhou would still seek help from the curator. No matter what, as long as Yi could be saved, Lu Bin would do his best to help. By now, they had arrived at the palace gates. Despite having existed for 400 years, the Jade Dragon Palace still exuded a majestic aura. Towering walls stood tall, with pavilions vaguely visible. The guards at the gates were clad in golden armor and wielding weapons. Every single one of them had a murderous aura. Those who were cowardly wouldn't even dare to approach. However, the guards were extremely polite to Lu Bin, not daring to stop him. However, Lin Jin was clearly an outsider. "General Lu, this is..." One of the guard captains had noticed Lu Bin's arrival, so he plucked up his courage and came over to ask. Lu Bin scoffed. "This is the physician I've invited to treat the 6th princess." "Ah, a physician. Please leave your name in the register." The guard captain handed over a register. Clearly, one had to register before entering the palace. This was a rule, and Lu Bin knew it too. Hence, he glanced at Lin Jin and said, "Appraiser Lin, this is a rule for entering the palace. Although it's troublesome, we should at least leave one of them here in case they come looking for trouble in the future." Lin Jin nodded. Of course. He picked up his brush and wrote down his name. Then, he followed Lu Bin into the palace. The palace was also a city, but it was located in the inner city. Compared to the liveliness outside, this place was much quieter and quieter. Even when they ran into some palace guards, most of them seemed to be in a hurry. No one made a ruckus, and they walked cautiously. This was in line with the palace's setting. After all, accompanying the emperor was akin to accompanying a tiger. There were many rules here. Lin Jin couldn't help but be reminded of He Qing. That last was so talkative. Could it be that she had been forcefully repressed in this place to develop such a personality? But that didn't seem right either. The cross-dressing He had a cold personality and was as cold as an iceberg. Lin Jin smacked his forehead, musing that he had forgotten. He must know that he was cursed. Just like how modern people would know that they were terminally ill, they all knew when they were going to die. How could they be as jumpy as He Qing? Besides, they're all pitiful people. Lin Jin mumbled to himself. Up ahead, Lu Bin said, "Appraiser Lin, we're here." They were here. Lin Jin looked up to see a short palace wall with a courtyard and a pavilion inside. This must be where the 6th princess, Hiyu, lived. Lu Bin was clearly a frequent visitor because the guards didn't stop him at all when he entered. The palace maids and servants bowed respectfully and addressed him as General Lu. After passing through the courtyard and entering the front hall, other than a pleasant aroma, Lin Jin heard a familiar voice. "Sister Yu, why won't you believe me? I'm telling you, someone will be here soon to treat you and remove the bestial soul curse. Just relax. For the next few days, eat and drink as you please. Don't let your thoughts run wild. Lin Jin could immediately tell that this voice belonged to He Qing. Soon, another gentle female voice was heard. Qing'er, you should read more and broaden your horizons. Otherwise, even if I die, I won't be able to rest in peace. Sister you, what are you talking about? Oh, I get it. You still don't believe me. You think I'm spouting nonsense. No. Qing'er, don't let your thoughts run wild. Forget it. I'll wait for the expert you mentioned to treat me. That's more like it. Sigh. Why haven't I seen Uncle Lu for the past few days? Uncle Lu went out to handle some matters. You should be back soon. Just then, Lu Bin's footsteps could be heard, and the conversation inside stopped. Lu Bin had Lin Jin wait in the front hall while he entered. Chapter 221. Lin Jin scanned his surroundings. The hall was elegant with calligraphy and paintings on the wall, a guqin on the side, a chest set on the table, and a bookshelf filled with books. The copper incense burner was suffused with the fragrance of sandalwood, soothing and relaxing. Soon, footsteps could be heard. He Qing ran out and stared at Lin Jin. He's so young. To think that a hero like Uncle Lu would be deceived. He must be getting old. He Qing commented before turning to Lin Jin. He Qing said before turning to Lin Jin. Uncle Lu might believe you, but I don't. Let me make this clear. If you can't cure him, I won't give you a single cent for the consultation fee. Lin Jin was obviously being treated as a swindler. Just then, Lu Bin came out. Seventh Princess, don't be rude. Following behind Lu Bin was a delicate-looking woman who bore some resemblance to He Qing. Although she looked frail and fragile, there was a rare sense of determination in her eyes. Sure enough, it was that cross-dressing woman. Qing'er, watch your words. Apologize to appraiser Lin now. As the elder sister, you had the right to reprimand He Qing. The latter was a little indignant, but knowing that she had been rude earlier, she reluctantly apologized. Knowing He Qing's personality, Lin Jin wouldn't blame her for this. He was currently studying Lin Jin curiously. Back at Maple City, she had met Lin Jin once. Back then, she had assumed him to be a lecher who was trying to take advantage of her. Who knew that appraiser Lin was such a remarkable person? Everything else aside, just the fact that he had given her the prescription was enough to make him her benefactor. If it weren't for the 9-water floating cloud pill, she wouldn't have been able to leave this place. Greetings, appraiser Lin. This was a formal greeting from Hiyu. Lin Jin smiled. I've come here specifically to treat the 6th princess. After all, someone has entrusted me with this task. Hiyu thought it was Lu Bin, but in fact, Lu Bin was here mainly because of He Qing. However, He Qing looked skeptical, as if she was treating Lin Jin as a swindler. Then how does appraiser Lin plan to treat her? He knew very well that the curse on her couldn't be removed. Moreover, it couldn't be dispelled either. However, she couldn't say it out loud. Let's just go with the flow and not make things difficult for Uncle Lu. Let's first seal off the bestial soul curse for now, then slowly remove it. Lin Jin replied seriously. He smiled. Then I'll have to trouble appraiser Lin to perform the acupuncture. He was well aware of her own condition. She knew very well what the curse on her was, and it wasn't something that could be removed by a mere human. Appraiser Lin was young and hot-blooded, and while he was capable, it was impossible for him to remove the curse. It was just that the pill formula given by the other party had helped him alleviate a lot of his pain. At the very least, he could leave with dignity. For this favor, it was nothing to let him perform acupuncture on him once. Lin Jin smiled and said to Lu Bin, silence is required during acupuncture. No one is to disturb you. Mr. Lu, and this lady, please stay outside and wait for me to finish. Before Lu Bin could say anything, He Qing said angrily, I won't. It's just acupuncture. It's not like I haven't seen it before. Why are you hiding it? Qing'er, don't be rude. He reprimanded. Lu Bin pulled her out after much persuasion. On the way out, He Qing was still mumbling reluctantly. He said helplessly, My little sister has always been like this. It's not that she doesn't understand etiquette. Please don't blame her, appraiser Lin. Lin Jean chuckled inwardly. You're both royalty. So what if I blame you? Moreover, how could Lin Jean not know what kind of person I Ching was? She was a straightforward person with no ulterior motives. Having lived 2 lives, Lin Jean wouldn't lower himself to her level. Only Lin Jean and he were left in the spacious hall. Without further ado, Lin Jean said, Please remove your outer garments so that I can perform acupuncture. He was stunned, and her cheeks reddened slightly. A man and a woman had to remove their outer garments when they were alone in a room. However, he was still wearing her inner garments. After some thought, she figured it wasn't a big deal. After all, there was no need to be afraid of treatment for an illness. Moreover, appraiser Lin was an honorable man. If he acted coy, it would only make her look bad. Hence, he removed her outer garments. Please sit down. Having said that, Lin Jean made no move to remove the needles. Although he was curious, she remained seated and watched Lin Jin's next move. In the next instant, Lin Jean flicked his finger. Without seeing anything, he felt her entire body become immobilized. She was horrified. She wanted to speak, but realized she couldn't even open her mouth to speak. This was obviously Lin Jin's doing. Later, he would be using the pulse-seeking technique's spirit-sealing needle. The process would be excruciating, so he had to seal Hiyu's body first so that she wouldn't move around recklessly and affect his treatment. Also, this would alleviate some of her pain. However, due to the uniqueness of the spirit-sealing needle, even if it reduced the pain by 80%, the remaining 20% would still be excruciating. Hence, he had to seal her voice to prevent her from screaming out of pain. Speaking of which, Lin Jean had been learning the pulse-seeking technique for some time now. Whenever he had the time, he would fiddle with the needles between his fingers. In the pulse-seeking technique, there was a specific technique for controlling needles. Lin Jean had complained about this many times when he first learned it. Others learned how to control their swords. How domineering was that? Flying 100 miles away with a single swing of the sword, refusing to return until they saw the demon blood sword. Now that was how an expert should be. Then, he looked at himself. Controlling needles. These needles were so tiny that they were hard to see with the naked eye. If they were to fly at high speeds, it would be even harder to detect them. It was indeed unpredictable, but the problem was that no one could see them clearly. If he were to imitate those sword immortals and make gestures, others would think he was crazy if they couldn't see the needles. But to be honest, in the pulse-seeking technique, the coiled wire needle was specialized in killing. In a battle of life and death, despite the size of this needle, it might not be any weaker than the 3-foot blade. It might even be stronger. Once it was pierced, be it a ferocious pet beast or an expert cultivator, they would all become a piece of meat on Lin Jin's chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Lin Jin was currently performing acupuncture, so that he didn't feel any numbness. But this was only the beginning. Once he sealed her spirit, she would suffer. He had to make this clear in advance. 6th Princess, I will be performing acupuncture to force the cursed spirit into your right pinky. There will be some pain, so please bear with it. After giving her a reminder, Lin Jin began. According to the Museum of Deadly Beasts, there were several steps to dispel the bestial soul curse in Hiyu's body. The first step was to seal the spirit. Hence, Lin Jin planned to seal it in her pinky. Even if something unexpected happened, he could plan for the worst-case scenario, and that was to cut off her pinky to break the curse. Of course, that would be the last resort. Lin Jin would try not to use it if he could avoid it. Of course, even if he didn't have to cut off her finger, the Museum of Deadly Beasts had a corresponding sealing method. One was to use the spirit sealing needle, and the other was to create an artifact and place it on her finger to seal the curse. To Lin Jin, none of these were successful. He planned to remove this curse for good. Only then would he be successful. In the next instant, Lin Jin manipulated the needles and began performing the spirit sealing technique. He reacted immediately. Chapter 222. Her eyes widened. The sudden pain almost made her scream out loud. If her throat wasn't sealed, she might have screamed out loud. Then, the pain grew even more unbearable. Her toes curled up, and a layer of sweat appeared on her forehead. In Lin Jin's eyes, a curse was running amok inside He Yu's body. However, it was being chased away by the spirit sealing needle. Outside in the yard, Lu Bin stared at the house and waited in silence. Beside him, He Qing was getting anxious. She paced back and forth, muttering under her breath. This Lin guy must be a swindler. If he doesn't succeed, watch how I reprimand him. After taking a few steps forward, she was about to approach the front hall to take a look when Lu Bin pulled her back. I'm just taking a peek. I won't make a sound. What are you afraid of? He Qing said. Seeing Lu Bin's silence, she knew there was no room for discussion. Oomph. When the person I found is here, he'll definitely be able to remove Sister Yu's curse. Lu Bin didn't know about this. After all, he hadn't been in the royal capital for the past few days. Seventh princess, have you found a physician too? Since Lu Bin had nothing better to do, he decided to chat with He Qing. Physician. He Qing burst into laughter. The expert I found isn't a physician, but he's much better than one. As long as he's here, he'll definitely be able to remove Sister Yu's curse. Her tone and demeanor were both threatening. Lu Bin knew He Qing's temperament, so he naturally wouldn't care. Regardless of whether what He Qing said was true or not, the relationship between the two sisters was undoubtedly enviable. One had to know that He Yu had been cursed since she was young. Hence, there had been very few people in the royal family who had interacted with her since she was young. Everyone had avoided her out of fear. He Qing was the only one who had the best relationship with her sister, and they spent the most time together. Lu Bin didn't treat the other members of the royal family well, but He Qing was different. Seventh princess, you should know that the curse on the sixth princess is no small matter. In the past few decades, none of the women in the royal family who have been infected by it have lived to their coming-of-age ceremony. There are only 10 days left until the sixth princess coming-of-age ceremony. This appraiser Lin I've invited is truly capable. You should know that under normal circumstances, the victim would be in excruciating pain by now. Forget walking, they wouldn't even be able to stand. But it's because of appraiser Lin's prescription that the sixth princess is in such a good condition. That's right. It's not that your Uncle Lu doesn't trust the person you found, but we really can't waste any more time on this matter. It took He Qing a while to understand what Lu Bin meant. So, he still didn't believe her. He Qing was furious. Uncle Lu, I think you're the one wasting your time. That Lin guy is so young. What can he do? Forget it. I won't talk to you anymore. You won't believe me anyway. When the people I find come, you'll know how powerful they are. He Qing was so angry that she kept quiet. Lu Bin smiled helplessly and did not say anything. Come to think of it, it had been some time since Lin Jin started his treatment. Inside the house, He Yu's face was pale. The pain she experienced earlier almost made her faint, but she couldn't. Instead, her mind was becoming clearer and clearer. She stared at Lin Jin with her big teary eyes. It was hard to tell if she was angry or begging for mercy. However, Lin Jin, who was performing the acupuncture, wasn't in a much better state. Lin Jin's face was pale and his forehead was covered in sweat. Despite the fact that he was only performing the spirit sealing technique, Lin Jin had actually used up a lot of his energy. That was because every stitch consumed his spiritual energy. Since the beginning, he had performed the acupuncture needles more than 100 times. One could only imagine how much spirit energy was being consumed. Earlier, Lin Jin had already consumed 2 pills to replenish his spirit energy. Fortunately, everything was going according to his plan. By now, the bestial soul curse that was wreaking havoc in He Yu's body had been extracted from her organs and directed to her right hand. If one were to look at He Yu's right hand, they would see a purplish hue. Moreover, this purplish hue was moving toward her palm and fingertips. At the same time, a roar came from one of Jade Dragon City's temples. In the next instant, the sky above Jade Dragon City changed color. After all, the sky had been clear just a moment ago. Who would have thought the weather would change so abruptly? The passers-by hastened their steps. An elderly man looked up at the sky and said, It's going to rain. Some packed up their stalls while others held up umbrellas. Some women hurried out to collect their clothes so they wouldn't get wet. Inside the palace, Emperor He Qian hurried out of the hall. Looking at the temple in the distance, his expression changed. "Where's Minister Yu?" He Qian asked. Someone beside him quickly answered. "Lord Minister Yu has gone to the temple to investigate." Right after that, someone flew over on the wind. After landing, he reported, "Your Majesty, something has happened." Soon, Minister Yu led a group of soldiers with a grim expression as he hurried toward the sixth princess, He Yu's palace. Of course, he was stopped by Lu Bin at the door. Minister Yu's expression darkened at the sight of Lu Bin, but he still greeted him politely. "General Lu, why are you here?" Lu Bin obviously looked down on Minister Yu as well. "Oh, do I have to inform you that I'm coming?" General Lu must be joking. Minister Yu poked his head in to take a look. Lu Bin stepped forward to stop him. "Lord Minister Yu, aren't you supposed to be in the imperial court dealing with national affairs? Why are you here in the harem?" It wasn't a nice thing to say as it reeked of gunpowder. Minister Yu didn't mind. Just as he was about to speak, the dark clouds in the sky began to dissipate and a ray of sunlight shone down. Minister Yu was taken aback. "I'm just leading the soldiers for a patrol. Nothing else." When Minister Yu finished speaking, he saw He Qing in the courtyard. He cupped his fists and bowed. "Seventh Princess, you're here too." "Greetings, Minister Yu." He Qing was rather courteous. She would only be carefree to those she was familiar with, but to outsiders, she could be dignified. "Why don't I see you, Seventh Princess?" Minister Yu asked. Just then, a female voice came from inside. "Who's talking outside?" Judging from the voice, it was He Yu. Soon, a pale He walked out. She smiled when she saw the crowd outside. "Lord Minister Yu, what brings you here with the soldiers?" Minister Yu observed He Yu carefully, but couldn't figure out what was wrong. He thought for a moment and said, "It's nothing. I'm just following orders to patrol. Sorry to disturb the two princesses." He left with the soldiers to report the situation to Emperor He Qian. Clearly, He Yu wasn't surprised by what happened. What surprised her was that she felt exceptionally refreshed. It was as if a huge mountain that had been pressing down on her had been moved away. Although she still looked weak, there was a hint of liveliness in her eyes. Her eyes were no longer as gloomy as before. Instead, they were as clear and bright as a normal girl's. Once Minister Yu left, He Qing naturally came up to inquire about the situation. Lu Bin sized He Yu up and was pleasantly surprised when he saw the change in her. He was delighted because He Yu's condition was much better than before. Previously, He Yu relied on the 9-water floating cloud elixir to stay in bed. However, she was in low spirits and listless. But now, although her face was still pale, there was a tinge of redness. Most importantly, her complexion was much better than before. Chapter 223. Lu Bin mused. Appraiser Lin Shure is resourceful. Although he believed in Lin Jin before, he still harbored some doubts. Now that He Yu's condition had improved so much after Lin Jin's arrival, how could he not be delighted? He was also surprised that Lin Jin had such remarkable skills at such a young age. It was truly unimaginable. By now, Lu Bin had no doubts about the curator Yi Yuzhou had mentioned. Perhaps only someone like the curator could produce such an impressive disciple. When He Yu returned, Lin Jin had yet to catch his breath as he sat down to rest. But to Lin Jin, it was just an overconsumption of spirit energy. He should be fine after a little rest. He Yu had a conflicted expression on her face. Before she could say anything, Lu Bin couldn't resist praising. Appraiser Lin, you're truly skillful. My efforts in inviting you here weren't in vain. No doubt, He Yu's condition improved after Lin Jin's acupuncture treatment. He Qing noticed this too, but she was in disbelief. She wanted to say something, but didn't know what to say. She clearly didn't believe that Lin Jin's acupuncture treatment would work. But the truth was it did. He Yu bowed. He Yu, thank you, Appraiser Lin. Having recovered some of his strength, Lin Jin stood up. It's all right. In a few more days, I'm confident I can completely remove the curse from your body. Lin Jin was confident enough to do so. However, He Yu's expression was a little odd. Instead of joy, there was a tinge of worry. Appraiser Lin, He Yu suddenly feels tired. I'll go get some rest. Uncle Lu, please send Appraiser Lin off, He Yu suddenly said. Lu Bin was stunned, but he didn't probe further. Lin Jin could tell that He Yu wanted to send him off, so he got up and left as well. Naturally, he was filled with questions. He Yu didn't seem to be happy at all. That was odd. The bestial soul curse on He Yu was no small matter. Forget the entire world. In the entire Jade Dragon Kingdom, no one but Lin Jin could break it for her. Moreover, looking at the speed at which the bestial soul curse was devouring her life force, she would die in less than 10 days. It could be said that just this move of hers today was enough to allow her to live for another year. Yet, she was still unhappy about it. Wasn't that strange? However, Lin Jin didn't ask. Even if he had to, he should ask Lu Bin. After all, Lu Bin was the one who invited him here. Also, if there was a chance, he should ask He Qing. However, it was obvious that He Yu's condition was improving. Although He Qing was a little unconvinced, she was still very happy, and so was Lu Bin. Only He Yu. Did she not want her condition to improve? By this time, He Yu had already excused herself and returned to the inner chamber. Even Lu Bin was rather embarrassed. This was not the attitude one should have toward their savior. He stood there, not knowing whether to speak or not. He Qing took a few quick steps and entered the inner chamber, presumably to accompany He Yu. Lu Bin sighed and led Lin Jin into the yard. Only then did he saluted apologetically. Appraiser Lin, the sixth princess may have been repressed for years, so her personality is a little odd. Please don't mind her. Even Lu Bin himself probably didn't believe these words. Being rude was being rude. What was the point of saying so much? Fortunately, Lin Jin was an easygoing person. Moreover, he didn't come here for He Yu's sake, but because of He Qing and Lu Bin's loyalty. Hence, Lin Jin laughed heartily. It's fine, it's fine. Today, I've used a spirit sealing needle to seal the sixth princess bestial soul curse on her right pinky. I also smelted a golden nail with my fire finger and engraved a spell on it. Then, I pinched a random ring and sealed the cursed spirit. With this, the cursed spirit won't harm her anymore. As long as she doesn't remove the golden ring, she'll be fine for at least a year. I'll come back another day and help her remove the cursed spirit once and for all. That way, I'll be able to answer to my mistake. Lu Bin was overjoyed. At this moment, he was truly impressed by Lin Jin. Even though Lin Jin was younger than him, after this incident, Lu Bin was more courteous and respectful toward him. After escorting him to the palace gates, Lin Jin said that he knew the way back to the inn and that he wanted to walk around on his own to enjoy the scenery of the royal capital. Lu Bin agreed. It was Appraiser Lin's first time in the royal capital, so everything must be new to him. Moreover, Appraiser Lin could go wherever he wanted. If Lu Bin followed him, he would surely feel uncomfortable. Hence, Lu Bin didn't insist on escorting Lin Jin. 20 steps away from the palace gates, he watched as Lin Jin walked into the crowd. Lu Bin sighed. The sixth princess had indeed been rude this time. Lu Bin had no idea why, but no matter what, it was wrong to do so. Lin Jin was still around, and Lu Bin couldn't bring himself to voice his anger. Now, he had to return to the sixth princess to clarify things. If necessary, he would reprimand her as well. Lu Bin hurried back. Just as he was about to enter the house, Lu Bin heard He Qing's voice from inside. Sister Yu, I don't understand. Since Appraiser Lin's method is effective, why didn't you treat her? He Qing could tell that He Qing was very surprised. Lu Bin immediately stopped in his tracks and listened with bated breath. Qinger, have you forgotten? This bestial soul curse is the fate of the royal family. Since I've shouldered it, I must bear the consequences. You should know this. He Yu sounded helpless. I know this is the royal family's rule, but why should you be the one to bear this fate? Moreover, since there's a way to remove it, why don't you do it? Do you really want to wait for death? Hearing this, Lu Bin stepped forward and walked in. Uncle Lu. Upon seeing Lu Bin, He Yu said, I know you're angry at me for being rude, but what happened today was beyond my expectations. I didn't think Appraiser Lin would really have a way. Lu Bin suppressed his anger. My lord, I've heard about the royal family's curse. The reason why those royal ladies died was because they didn't meet an expert like Appraiser Lin. Since you've met him, you should use him to remove this hidden threat from your body. Why are you so reluctant? The seventh princess was right. Do you really want to wait for death to come? You wanted to say something, but hesitated. In the end, she said, I know what I'm doing. Appraiser Lin came all the way here, and I was rude to him. It's my fault. Please apologize on my behalf, Uncle Lu. If Appraiser Lin needs help in the future, please help him as much as you can to repay his kindness today. Lu Bin's eyes widened in anger, clearly confused. Before he could say anything, he suddenly said sternly, Uncle Lu, if you still respect me as your lord, just listen to my orders. There's no need to say anything else. Lu Bin was stunned. This was the first time he saw Hiyu lose her temper. After a moment of hesitation, he bowed and retreated for the time being. Having watched her grow up, he was well aware of the girl's temperament. Right now, she was in a state of extreme stubbornness. If he said too much, it might backfire on her. It was better to take things slowly. Qinger, you should go back too. I'm sleepy and I need a rest. He chased He Qing out. When they reached the yard, He Qing seemed to be deep in thought. Then, she advised, Uncle Lu, that's just how Sister Yu is. Don't stoop to her level. Lu Bin nodded. After some thought, he pulled He Qing out of the yard and found a deserted alley. He whispered, Seventh Princess, your Uncle Lu has something to ask you. You have to answer me honestly. Don't hide anything from me. Being a smart girl, He Qing whispered back, Uncle Lu, you want to ask about the secret of our royal family, about the bestial soul curse, right? Lu Bin nodded. He Qing looked around and said cautiously, This isn't the place to talk. Uncle Lu, follow me to a secluded spot. I'll tell you everything slowly. Moments later, on the roof of a palace hall, He Qing sat comfortably on a chair. She spoke and gestured as she revealed the royal family secret. Speaking of which, Lu Bin knew a little about the so-called royal family secret. He knew that the curse on Hiyu had been passed down for 5 generations in the royal family. The first 4 were all daughters of the royal family, just like Hiyu. They were of noble status. However, no matter who it was, they were plagued by the bestial soul curse and died tragically in their beds before they could reach adulthood. It was said that when these royal daughters died, their vitality was sucked dry and they were reduced to skeletons. Just the thought of such a way of dying was horrifying. Ordinary people would not be able to bear it, let alone members of the royal family. However, Lu Bin had always thought that the bestial soul curse was difficult to remove. Now that He Qing had revealed the secret, he realized that his thinking was too simple. Chapter 2:24. In fact, He Qing didn't know the whole story, but she had a rough idea of where this came from. According to her, Jade Dragon Kingdom was once a premium country in its early years. But 50 years ago, its rank 5 guardian beast died, causing Jade Dragon Kingdom to fall from the ranks of major countries and become an intermediate country. That was when the curse started to appear. Uncle Lu, I don't know much either. Ever since I was young, I've heard that the curse is to choose a woman in the family. Once chosen, the woman has to bear the curse's power. It's also said that this is the foundation of a nation's strength. In other words, if the curse is broken, Jade Dragon Country will be in danger, He Qing said seriously. But soon, she whispered, but I don't believe it at all. What family's fate? This is the strength of a nation. It's all about strategy. How can you use a curse as an excuse? And yet, Father and the others believe it. As Lu Bin listened, he finally had a clear idea of what was going on. It was no wonder Hiyu had such a reaction. To her, it would be best if she could remove the curse. But if she did, it would bring disaster to Jade Dragon Kingdom. In the past, she had never thought about removing the curse. All she wanted was to alleviate the pain. In her words, even if she had to die, she wanted to die more comfortably. After understanding Hiyu's thoughts, Lu Bin had the same reaction as He Qing. *T. The fate of a nation was tied to a woman. No matter how he looked at it, It was the biggest joke in the world. But now, it seemed like the royal family, including the emperor, believed it without a doubt. I don't believe it either. Seventh princess, think about it. Isn't there something else you haven't told me? Why do you say that the bestial soul curse is tied to Jade Dragon Kingdom's fate? Could it be that once the curse is removed, the kingdom will decline? Or will enemies come to invade? Lu Bin was clearly more comprehensive in his considerations. In his opinion, the fastest way to make Jade Dragon Kingdom decline was for a powerful enemy to invade. But what did this have to do with the curse and He Yu's body? He Qing clearly couldn't answer this question. I really don't know about the rest. In short, this curse concerns the fate of a country. Sister Yu probably doesn't want to cure it because of this. After saying that, He Qing seemed to have thought of something. She grumbled angrily. The curator lied. He said he would send someone to dispel the curse for Sis, but he hasn't come yet. The speaker did not mean it, but the listener did. Lu Bin was taken aback. He glanced at He Qing and asked tentatively, Seventh Princess, do you know the curator? After the conversation, both Lu Bin and He Qing were dumbfounded. Uncle Lu, are you saying that Appraiser Lin is curator's disciple? He Qing's eyes widened. Lu Bin nodded. That's what Yi Yuzhou of Maple City said, so it shouldn't be false. Although I've never met that curator, I'm quite curious about him. If there's a chance, I'd like to meet him. He Qing's eyes darted around before realization dawned on her. Oh, I get it. The curator said he would send someone to treat Sis. So he's sending his disciple, right? Yi Yuzhou of Maple City, Old Yi. Ha ha ha. I didn't expect Old Yi to be a citizen of Jade Dragon Kingdom too. If there's a chance, I'll have to pay him a visit. I bet he'll be shocked to see me. Lu Bin asked, then can I go to the curator's visitation hall? He Qing shook her head. You can't. You can unless the curator asks you to go. Old Yi and I can't do anything about that. Lu Bin looked puzzled as he mumbled, I don't get it. I understand that junior brother Yuzhou can go since his cultivation level is high and his pet beast is rank 4. But why can 7th Princess go too? Lu Bin couldn't figure it out. He Yu clearly didn't want to deal with the problem she was facing, especially after realizing that Lin Jin could really help her remove the curse. She became even more determined. She doesn't have a choice in this matter. Even if I have to use force, I can't just watch 6th Princess die. Lu Bin made up his mind. At this, He Qing nodded. Of course. Uncle Lu, I'll stand firmly on your side on this matter. When the time comes, I'll do my best to help you. Even if Sister Yu blames me in the future, I won't be afraid. An old man and a young girl formed an alliance on the rooftop. Unbeknownst to them, a shadow flew out from the Dragon Temple in the city. Moments later, it arrived at the 6th Princess bedroom inside the palace. Upon closer inspection, one could see that it was the silhouette of a dragon. The moment the dragon entered, there was a sudden howl of agony. The dragon flew out in fear and returned to the Dragon Temple in the distance. Inside the bedroom, He Yu stared at her right pinky in astonishment. Most of her pinky was currently bruised, as if there was some sinister energy sealed within. On her pinky was a rough gold ring that separated her normal skin color from the bruised one. Just now, for some reason, the gold ring actually shone brightly. Then, a ball of flame appeared. Clearly, it was burning something. That flame came and went quickly, vanishing in the blink of an eye. If it weren't for the lingering glow on the gold ring, He would have thought her eyes were playing tricks on her. Something must have happened just now. He mumbled to herself. The royal capital was indeed bustling with activity. As the weather turned brighter, the vendors who were about to close their stalls didn't leave. After all, it was still early, and it wasn't worth it to go back so early. Walking through the streets, besides the locals, there were also foreign merchants. There were also warriors dressed in martial attire walking briskly, while various beasts followed their masters, creating a harmonious scene. Lin Jin now had plenty of local delicacies in his hands. There were braised meat skewers and fried pancakes. Of course, Lin Jin also bought quite a lot for Xiao Hua and White Ape so that the two gluttons could have a taste of the delicacies. At first, Lin Jin wandered around aimlessly. Then, he realized that, as an official beast appraiser, he should pay a visit to the royal capital's Beast Appraisal Association headquarters. Hence, he asked some passers-by for directions before heading to the headquarters. The royal capital was huge. If he was in Maple City, he could probably walk from the East Gate to the West Gate. But here in the royal capital, he only had to walk a few streets. There weren't many people here either. But when he reached the consultation hall of the headquarters, the place was bustling with activity. It was almost as lively as Tiananmen Street. There were even more beasts here. Lin Jin could tell that not only were the locals here, but there were even more outsiders. This was to be expected. Jade Dragon Kingdom's Beast Appraisal Association headquarters was located here. To put it bluntly, this was where the Beast Appraisal Association's best resources and most experienced beast appraisers were gathered. Hence, it was normal for people from all over to come here to appraise and treat beasts. In terms of scale, the royal capital's headquarters was at least 10 times larger than Maple City's. Chapter 225. Inside the royal capital's Beast Appraisal Association headquarters, several beast appraisers sat in the main hall with grim expressions. These people were all wearing two-ring beast emblem sleeves. Some were pacing around with their hands behind their backs, while others were holding brushes in their hands. All of them were staring at the books on the table, unable to write a single word. Difficult. This is too difficult. It's more than difficult. There's no cure for this situation. Did you get a rank 3 beast appraiser here? We did, but the rank 3 beast appraisers are busy, so they won't be able to make it in time. The rank 2 beast appraisers discussed among themselves. Not far away, a large beast lay sprawled on the ground. This ferocious beast was no small matter. It was shaped like a lizard and was covered in scales. Its tail was over 20 feet long, and its head was as big as a drum. There were sharp horns on its forehead, and its limbs were thick. One could tell that it was a rare, earth dragon ferocious beast. Even though it was lying on the ground weakly at this moment, there was a mighty aura of disdain in its slightly open dragon eyes. This was a rank 3 pet beast. Although rank 3 pet beasts weren't rare in Jade Dragon City, they weren't something the average citizen could afford to own. Their owners were either wealthy or respectable, especially this type of earth dragon. Dragon-type pet beasts had always been precious. Not only were they rare beasts, but they were also more domineering and noble than regular pet beasts. The owner of this earth dragon could be considered a relative of the royal family. It was Jade Dragon City's King Yu's pet beast. King Yu was the emperor's biological brother and held a noble status. Hence, the Beast Appraisal Association had to treat his pet beast. However, they didn't expect the rank 2 beast appraisers to be at their wits' end against this earth dragon. They used their medicine too. They cast spells too, but nothing worked. Moreover, this earth dragon seemed to be in a worse state than when it arrived. It was motionless, and the rank 2 beast appraisers were afraid that the earth dragon would slip away. There's nothing we can do. I think we should get another rank 3 beast appraiser here. Outside the headquarters, Lin Jin casually touched a few pet beasts passing by to increase his record count. However, Lin Jin wasn't too insistent on this right now. The Museum of Deadly Beasts had recorded quite a number of pet beasts. However, there was still a long way to go before he could progress further and obtain the next reward. Hence, Lin Jin didn't insist. After all, the number of pet beasts to be recorded in the next stage might be in the tens of thousands. There was no point in forcing it. There had to be a reason for this visit. In terms of acquaintances, Lin Jin only knew one person in Beast Appraisal headquarters, and that was Tan's son. Hence, he had come to pay a visit to Tan's son. Also, before leaving, Tan Lin had written a letter home and asked Lin Jin to bring it over. Hence, he had to make this trip no matter what. Mister, if you're here for beast appraisal and treatment, please line up over there. Upon seeing Lin Jin approaching, a guard at headquarters spoke up politely to stop him. Lin Jin stood still, and so did Xiao Hua and the white ape. The two beasts looked around curiously. Lin Jin saluted. Lin Jin of Maple City's Beast Appraisal Association is here to visit Appraiser Tan. Please inform him of my arrival. The guard also noticed Lin Jin's two-ring sleeve band and was shocked. Although there were plenty of beast appraisers in the royal capital, and rank 2 beast appraisers were rare in other smaller cities, they weren't rare at headquarters. According to the rules, only rank 2 beast appraisers were qualified to serve in headquarters. Rank 1 beast appraisers were only allowed to act as assistants. Since you're a beast appraiser from Maple City, please come in and wait. We'll inform Appraiser Tan of your arrival. The guard was respectful as he led Lin Jin inside. Along the way, he stole glances at Xiao Hua and the white ape. 1, he was amazed by the wolf and ape's vigor, and 2, he was curious as to which one of them was this young appraiser's pet beast. They arrived at a small guest room. After settling Lin Jin down, the guard went to inform Tan Sun of his arrival. Although the room wasn't huge, it was clean and sparkling. There was hot tea on the table, and a few basic beast appraisal chants hung on the wall. Soon, footsteps could be heard, followed by Tan Sun's familiar voice. "Is Appraiser Lin here?" Before he could finish his sentence, Tan Sun walked in. Lin Jin quickly got up and bowed. "Greetings, Appraiser Tan Sun." "Ha, there's no need to be so polite, Appraiser Lin. You're my daughter's benefactor, and I was thinking of visiting Maple City when I had the chance. Who knew you'd come to the royal capital? That's great. Let's try some of the famous dishes from the royal capital's Spring Feast restaurant later," Tan Sun said enthusiastically. Recently, Tan Lin had been exchanging letters with Tan Sun, and Tan Sun would often mention Lin Jin. Tan Sun could tell that his precious daughter admired Lin Jin, and Lin Jin had helped her resolve several crises. Most of her letters talked about Lin Jin's beast appraising skills. Even Lin Jin didn't know about this. Ever since Tan Lin became chief of Maple City's Beast Appraiser Association, she had been paying special attention to Lin Jin. She studied every single one of Lin Jin's evaluation reports meticulously. Through this study, she was able to discern Lin Jin's true abilities. As a rank 2 beast appraiser, Tan Lin had been receiving guidance from an expert like Tan Sun since she was young. Her starting point was quite high, and it was because of this that she knew what kind of evaluation reports were valuable. Lin Jin's evaluation reports were just like that. Be it beast appraising or treatment, they were all detailed records that were well-organized and logical. The various diagnoses and deductions were also well-founded. Even a random book could be used as a classroom teaching material. Occasionally, when Tan Sun taught apprentices, he would use Lin Jin's evaluation reports as examples to explain the principles behind beast appraising. After reading so many books, both Tan Lin and Tan Sun knew that Lin Jin's beast appraising skills were incredible. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they were unfathomable. Out of curiosity, Tan Sun looked into Lin Jin's classroom but found nothing special. Among his peers, Lin Jin's achievements were the greatest. Other than Lin Jin's innate intelligence and eagerness to learn, there must be other reasons. Beast appraising skills couldn't be learned for no reason. Many of them were based on experience. Without a solid foundation, it was impossible to appraise beasts using such methods. Hence, Tan Sun deduced that Lin Jin must have had a fortuitous encounter. He must have met an expert. Since Lin Jin didn't mention it, it wouldn't be appropriate to ask. But since ancient times, capable people were respected. Not only Tan Lin, but even Tan Sun was impressed by Lin Jin's beast appraising skills. Hence, Tan Sun had a higher opinion of Lin Jin. Since Tan Sun wanted to treat him to a meal, Lin Jin wouldn't refuse. Coincidentally, Lin Jin passed Tan Lin's letter to Tan Sun, completing his task. Tan Sun was stunned to see Lin Jin's pet beast and white ape. It's often said that fur is the spirit while a beast's eyes are the essence. Appraiser Lin, your pet beast, is quite something. The more Tan Sun studied it, the more surprised he became. As a rank 3 beast appraiser, Tan Sun was knowledgeable and had sharp eyes. What others couldn't tell, Tan Sun was able to. Amidst his surprise, Tan Sun used some beast appraising methods. What seemed like nothing happened, Tan Sun's expression changed. Chapter 226. His fourth order. Tan Sun couldn't be blamed for his shock. Rank 4 pet beasts were extremely rare in the Jade Dragon Kingdom. Whenever one was found, they would be recruited into the nation's defense department. Based on what Tan Sun knew, there were only 7 rank 4 pet beasts in the entire Jade Dragon Kingdom. These 7 rank 4 pet beasts and their masters were the most important pillars of Jade Dragon Kingdom. After all, as an intermediate country, any one of these rank 4 pet beasts was a national guardian beast. This was why Tan Sun was so surprised that Lin Jin's pet beast was already rank 4. Lin Jin wasn't surprised that Tan Sun could tell. After all, the man was a capable rank 3 beast appraiser, a top-notch figure in Jade Dragon Kingdom. Moreover, Lin Jin had no intention of keeping a secret. Everyone in Maple City already knew about it, and Yi Yuzhou and Bai Zhenkong must have notified the royal capital, so it wasn't a secret anymore. As for the white ape on the young man's back, Tan Sun was even more curious. Rank 4 ferocious beasts were all highly intelligent and arrogant. Generally speaking, they would not tolerate other creatures riding on their backs. Therefore, Tan Sun began to carefully examine the white ape. Lin Jin didn't stop him. The transformation technique White Ape was using originated from the Museum of Deadly Beasts demonic transformation. It was amazing and even included a concealment technique. Although White Ape wasn't as adept at it as Shang'er and Lil 5, he was still quite proficient. If he didn't fight with anyone or release his demonic energy, even a beast appraiser wouldn't be able to tell. Even so, he might not be able to fool a rank 3 beast appraiser like Tan Sun. Hence, Lin Jin brought the white ape with him. If an expert were to investigate, he could use the safest method. The coiled wire needle sealed off several of the white ape's acupoints. With this, even a rank 3 beast appraiser like Tan Sun wouldn't be able to detect anything wrong with the white ape. Lin Jin had only recently learned this technique from the pulse-seeking technique. Even now, Lin Jin had only explored 20 to 30% of the pulse-seeking technique's wonders. This formation included coiled wire needles and acupoint sealing needles. It was a profound and mysterious technique. As time went by, Lin Jin's study of this technique deepened, and he would be able to unleash even more supernatural powers. Tan Sun used the usual methods to investigate, but to no avail. He was very curious. With his skills, there were very few ferocious beasts that he could not see through. Just as Tan Sun was about to continue investigating, someone rushed in from outside. "Elder Tan, I've finally found you. Something has happened over there, and the rank 2 beast appraisers are helpless." Tan Sun asked about the situation in detail and finally understood what had happened. They're all experienced rank 2 beast appraisers from headquarters, and they're usually proud and arrogant. If even they can't do anything about it, it must be a troublesome matter. Tan Sun chuckled, completely at ease. The messenger mused, as expected of a rank 3 beast appraiser. His composure is so strong that even if a mountain collapses, he won't budge. This was something that could only be done with strength. "Let's go. I happen to be free, so I'll go take a look." Tan Sun smiled faintly, clearly not taking it seriously. He glanced at Lin Jin, thought for a moment, and said, "Appraiser Lin, if you're free, why don't you come with me? Once we've helped them solve their problem, we can go for a drink." "Sure, I'll be able to watch Appraiser Tan appraise beasts and broaden my horizons." Lin Jin kept a low profile. He really wanted to see how a rank 3 beast appraiser like Tan Sun appraised and treated beasts. Beast appraisers needed to interact with each other to improve themselves. Following Tan Sun, they walked through the halls of headquarters and arrived at a large hall. At first glance, Lin Jin noticed the earthly dragon beast sprawled on the floor. This earthly dragon was majestic. Its outer armor looked like it was forged from metal. One look was enough to tell that this was no ordinary beast. However, this supposedly ferocious earthly dragon beast was currently dispirited and listless. It lay there motionlessly, unable to even lift its eyelids. One look was enough to tell that it was infected. Tan Sun was stunned to see it as well. "Isn't this King Yu's earthly dragon beast?" Tan Sun clearly recognized this pet beast. The rank 2 beast appraisers who were at their wits' end in the hall immediately came forward to greet Tan Sun with hopeful looks on their faces. Elder Tan. Greetings, Elder Tan. We're relieved that you're here. Tan Sun waved his hand and asked, what's going on? One of the rank 2 beast appraisers stepped forward and answered, King Yu's manor sent it over this morning. Back then, this earthly dragon beast was still able to move around on its own, but it wasn't in good spirits. We knew that King Yu cherished this pet beast, so a few of us worked together to treat it. Who knew? After a pause, someone continued, who knew that this earthly dragon beast was acting strangely? We tried all sorts of methods, but we couldn't find any problems with it. Its blood circulation was clearly strong, and there were no problems with its veins either. But somehow, it looked like it was suffering from a serious illness, and the more we treated it, the worse it got. Look at it now. It's barely breathing, so we didn't dare to treat it carelessly for fear that it would die. Tan Sun's expression turned grim. He nodded and strode over. The rank 2 beast appraisers heaved a sigh of relief. Tan Sun was a highly respected figure at headquarters. As one of the earliest rank 3 beast appraisers, he was quite knowledgeable and experienced in every aspect. At this moment, they also noticed the young man who had followed Tan Sun in. The young man looked younger than them, but he had an extraordinary bearing. Most importantly, the sharp-eyed ones among them immediately noticed that the young man was wearing a 2-ringed beast pattern sleeve band. Such a young rank 2 beast appraiser? The few of them looked at each other in shock. However, this young rank 2 beast appraiser looked unfamiliar. Although there were many rank 2 beast appraisers at headquarters, they had never seen this young man before. Could he be Elder Tan's new disciple? The few of them thought to themselves, now is not the time for introductions. If something happened to King Yu's pet beast, it would be no small matter. It might even cause trouble. Tan Sun stepped forward and began his treatment. Lin Jin glanced over curiously. Truth be told, even with his current level of insight, he couldn't tell what was wrong with this beast. However, based on his initial observation, the result should be the same as the rank 2 beast appraisers. This pet beast shouldn't be sick. Silence filled the room. Tan Sun was serious, but eventually, a look of doubt appeared on his face. That's strange. Only after he spoke did the others dare to speak up. Elder Tan, what is going on? That's right. Please make a decision. Tan Sun glanced at the group and said, just as you said, King Yu's land dragon beast doesn't seem to be sick. Its vitality isn't weak, and it's even full of energy. Yet it's not moving at all. That's strange. At this, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. If even appraiser Tan Sun said so, it meant that their diagnosis was correct. What medicine did you guys give it? Tan Sun asked. Someone immediately took out an evaluation report with a list of the pills it had consumed. You ate so much? Tan Sun was taken aback. He took a closer look and nodded. Just by looking at the list of pills, he knew that they were all supplements, so it should be fine. So why was this land dragon beast behaving like this? As Lin Jin listened carefully, an idea suddenly popped into his mind. At the same time, Tan Sun racked his brains and his eyes suddenly lit up. I got it. He immediately formed a small seal and pressed it on the land dragon beast's body. The moment the seal came into contact, it burst into flames. I see, Tan Sun exclaimed. That thing was indeed priceless. Lin Jin wanted to know where this big guy got his hands on it. The earthly dragon beast seemed to be on the verge of death, but it was actually a special state. It was a crucial period for the earthly dragon beast. Once it survived, it would gain a lot of benefits. In fact, it might even be able to advance to the next rank. Hence, Lin Jin was telling the truth. Appraisers, Elder Tan, this earthly dragon beast, may seem weak, but its life isn't in danger. We just need to let it recuperate, and it should be able to stand up on its own in a day at most. There's no need to worry. The only thing you have to be careful is not to disturb it. Even Tan Sun was taken aback by those words. The rank 2 beast appraiser's first reaction was that Lin Jin was spouting nonsense. They had evaluated this earthly dragon beast several times, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was absolutely safe. Why couldn't they tell that this earthly dragon beast wasn't in danger? It was clearly in a dying state. At this, the rank 2 beast appraiser's expressions darkened. Not only because Lin Jin was spouting nonsense, but because his diagnosis could possibly kill a high-level pet beast. To a beast appraiser, this was an unforgivable mistake. Tan Sun wasn't entirely convinced by Lin Jin's words, but he had some understanding of Lin Jin's methods. Based on Lin Jin's evaluation reports alone, Lin Jin's beast appraising skills were probably on par with his own. How could an expert like him be mistaken? Hence, Tan Sun didn't speak immediately. Instead, he stepped forward to examine the beast again. This time, he was very meticulous. Once he was done, Tan Sun's expression changed. He turned to Lin Jin and said, "Appraiser Lin, your skills are truly superb. Even I was mistaken earlier." His answer confirmed Lin Jin's conjecture. No matter how bad the other beast appraiser's eyesight was, they could tell that something was amiss. Where are the needles? They're gone. It's as if they were completely pierced into the earth dragon's body. Have any of you heard of this technique before? Among them, there were a few knowledgeable people who came up with the words internal acupuncture technique. To them, internal acupuncture was something that only existed in legends. When they looked at Lin Jin again, they were dumbfounded. No one dared to make a sound to disturb Lin Jin's acupuncture. Even those who came in from outside were immediately stopped by the beast appraisers, afraid that they would disturb Lin Jin. Moments later, Lin Jin retracted his needles. His technique was clean and precise. The earth dragon beast's breathing was now even. Although it was still motionless, it had stabilized and was no longer in danger. Turning around, Lin Jin saw everyone looking at him with respect. "Appraiser Lin, that was a great technique. This earth dragon beast should be fine now, right? Appraiser Lin, this acupuncture technique is amazing. Can you explain it to us?" The beast appraisers looked expectant. Tan Sun coughed softly. Only then did the beast appraisers snap out of their daze. The internal acupuncture technique was so amazing, and it was also a legendary acupuncture technique. How could he simply give them pointers? It was written in ancient books that skills were not easily passed down. Given how amazing this internal acupuncture technique was, it could be considered an ancient immortal skill. Since it was a treasure, they wouldn't reveal it so easily either. Understanding the situation, the beast appraisers felt a tinge of regret. But that was fine. Now that they knew who Lin Jin was, they would have plenty of chances to get closer to him in the future. If they became friends in the future, it wouldn't be a problem for Lin Jin to occasionally give them pointers. Now that the situation had stabilized, the earth dragon beast only needed a good night's sleep to be fine. Tan Sun checked again and confirmed this conclusion. Once the matter was settled, Tan Sun led Lin Jin away. Before they left, the rank 2 beast appraisers escorted them all the way to the door with great enthusiasm. Chapter 229. Tan Sun wasn't joking when he said he would treat Lin Jin to a meal. Of course, given Tan Sun's personality, he wasn't one to be extravagant. He simply brought Lin Jin to a restaurant he frequented in the royal capital and ordered a few more signature dishes than usual. Of course, Lin Jin couldn't refuse the wine. It was a rule to treat guests who came from afar with wine. Truth be told, Lin Jin and Tan Sun weren't exactly close, and there was a significant age gap between them. According to Lin Jin, a gap of 3 to 5 years could cause a generation gap, let alone a gap of 30 to 50 years. However, after the meal, Lin Jin and Tan Sun got along well. The most important thing for people to have the same point of view, which was how they viewed different things. In this aspect, Lin Jin and Tan Sun were quite similar. When it came to beast appraising knowledge, both of them had their own strengths and weaknesses. Lin Jin had been taking supplementary lessons at the Museum of Deadly Beasts, and his knowledge had improved tremendously. No one his age could compare to him. Even the older ones might not be able to surpass him. And yet, Tan Sun was a man who valued knowledge above all else. After this discussion, he was the most surprised. Lin Jin knew more about pet beasts than he had expected. In short, his knowledge far surpassed that of a rank 2 beast appraiser. Even among rank 3 beast appraisers, Lin Jin's knowledge was more than enough to make him a rank 3 beast appraiser. Suddenly, Tan Sun said, "Appraiser Lin, if you were to take the rank 3 beast appraiser examination now, I think you'd be able to pass." Lin Jin was stunned. Then, he understood that Tan Sun was affirming his knowledge. "You flatter me, Elder Tan." It was only right for him to be humble. However, Tan Sun shook his head firmly. "I'm not exaggerating. Your knowledge is truly impressive. I've seen too many talented people in the royal city headquarters. At least in the past 30 years, no one has been better than you." If Lin Jin's previous praise was just for show, this time, Tan Sun was being extremely serious. Lin Jin smiled. Of course, he was happy. By now, the dishes on the table were more or less finished. Lin Jin was reminded of the human monkey monster he met earlier. After a moment's thought, he asked tentatively, "What's the matter? Elder Tan, is the royal capital peaceful?" This question was obviously too broad, and Lin Jin didn't know how to start, so he started with this question. As an experienced man, Tan Sun could tell that Lin Jin was hinting at something. "Appraiser Lin, the royal capital is the heart of Jade Dragon Kingdom. It's under the Emperor's control, so it's naturally peaceful. If you have any doubts, you can ask me directly. I may be older than you, but I'm not a pedantic person, so there's no need to beat around the bush." Lin Jin laughed heartily. This was what he was waiting for. All right. Then, Elder Tan, I'll ask you directly.